Hello and welcome to the 2014 Virtual Mini Challenge Round 5 from Taruma.
Inside SimRacing.tv, the fastest show on the internet. Sim racing news and reviews since 2007, with new shows every week.
Hello everybody and welcome to round 5 of the 2014 Virtual Mini Challenge presented by TouringProSeries here in the magnificent Autodromo Internacional de Taruma, located in Viamão in Brazil. It's a city in Rio Grande do Sul. It is the largest municipality in the metropolitan region of Porto Alegre and the 7th most populous in the state. And of course we're here to continue our opening series of races for 2014 here at TPS. And of course we find ourselves at this fantastic little track for 2 races, as usual, in this format for VMC. Scott Woodwiss back once again, commentating alongside my good friend John Munro. And John, I've been away for the past 2 races for some laptop troubles and what have you. So, but of course, you've done the races at. I've even forgotten the track which was what was the circuit at before? I'm mumbling here. Cascavel and Velo Park. Obviously, 2 great races, but of course, last time out in Velo Park, we got a big surprise that a brand new name hit the top step of the podium, albeit temporarily. But in Velo Park, we were definitely introduced to one Adrian Campfield.
Yeah, definitely. And first of all, good afternoon or good evening to everybody watching. But yeah, if you haven't caught up with the Velo Park round, you might want to give it a quick watch on the Touring Pro Series YouTube page, because we had a new face in Touring Pro Series and then a new winner. But there is some post-race controversy we need to talk to you about, because of course that wasn't covered during the event. Some penalties have changed some of the results around, so we'll need to keep you informed about that as the day goes on. But yeah, this is round 5 from Taruma. We've had a couple of great rounds. Well, we've had 4, it has to be said, fantastic rounds of the Virtual Mini Challenge. Incredibly exciting racing, and we're looking forward to this round at Taruma, which, Scott, looks like it's going to be a terrific track.
It certainly does. 9 corners. It's not a very long track, of course. It's very tight and twisting. It's 1.81 miles in length, or exactly 3 kilometres. And it's very tricky, very undulating as well. Lots of winding and flowing corners here. I know that 1 or 2 TPS regulars have raced here before in Brazilian leagues. One to notice, of course, Mike Bell, who raced against the Rubens Barrichello and his son in the GTR Brazil Mini Challenge Championship. So he certainly has experience of this circuit, but of course he's not racing here tonight. He's observing his team Smile Power Racing, who have a couple of drivers up there doing rather well in practice, and we'll get onto who's doing what in practice at the moment in just a minute. But what we can do is have a look at the championship standings coming in to round 5 here at Taruma. We'll have them on the screen for you right now in just a moment. In fact, they're on right now. And leading the title race is Chris Butcher. And of course, this is a similar position to what he was in last season, because of course it was him and his teammate Robert Wiesenmuller who again are going for the title. But this time Butcher has a bit of a more stretched lead. He's on 204 points compared to RW's 176, with Eric Strana of Ice Cold Racing only some 9 points back with 167. And then we have Peter Dweevlar, who I believe is not racing tonight, on 148. And that possibly gives the chance for Rasmus Salo, who I'm not sure if he's racing tonight or not. I'll have to look in the entry list or drivers in the server. I can't see Rasmus's name in there at the moment. So possibly then the men in 4th and 5th are not driving tonight. But Toby Davis is, but he's back on 96 points. So he's going to have to do some major catching up and also try and break himself into the top 5 and capitalise on the fact that both Dweevlar and Salo aren't here. Tveit sits 7th with 72 points, 3 points ahead of Neto in 8th. Ryan Callan is 9th, who apparently is suffering from a bit of a cold and a bit of a sniffles, but apparently he's dosed up on caffeine and coffee and what have you, so he's trying to get through this as best he can. And Andrew Waring, who of course took a victory last time out, his first TPS victory last time out at Velo Park, sits in the top 10 on 55 points, 2 points behind Callan, and he definitely seems to have found his form at the moment in this championship, so it'll be interesting to see how he gets on the sweeps of Taruma. Quick looking at the Teams Championship, and it is, of course, THR Red that lead the standings with 380 points, albeit both their drivers are up the front in the Drivers' Championship, so it's no surprise that they're topping the team standings also. Ice Cold Racing, the majority of their points scored, of course, by Eric Strana in second place with 239. Walk Racing third with 205. And then THR Blue with 173. A large gap back to THR Orange in fifth with 106. And then EKT Portugal with 98. Smile Power Racing with 90 in seventh. Eighth is Optimum Sim Racing Alpha with 53. And Aerostream 2 in ninth with 47. And SimSpeed Racing in 10th with 44. So, John, of course, coming into these last couple of rounds, of course, we have these two races here at Taruma. We have Campo Grande, and then, of course, the same as we had last year, the season finale at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. This is really another key opportunity for Chris Butcher to take his first TPS title, because on many occasions Chris has always been the bridesmaid but never the bride when it comes to championship victories. He's taken countless race victories and pole positions and what have you, and fastest laps and podiums. But it's kind of like Toby Davis when he was in the Clio Championship the previous season before it was rebranded to the Thomas Lecole Clio Series, that he was still striving to win a championship and just for whatever reason couldn't string the results together in order to get the end result and pick up that illustrious title. But it seems to be that if he can just keep his nose clean here this weekend at Taruma and for the final two race weekends at Campo Grande in Mid-Ohio, he could possibly be looking at his first championship. But of course, it's not over until the checkered flag falls in that second race in Mid-Ohio, is it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Chris has got probably his best ever opportunity in a Touring Pro Series championship to win. I mean, just looking at the standings there as we were a second ago, you can see that Butcher's already, accumulated a massive lead. I believe it's somewhere around about 28 points over his teammate Robert Wiesemüller. So that's, almost a full race victory as long as Chris can keep his nose clean, as you see him beginning his qualifying lap. But the thing Chris has in his advantage is most of the championships he's been fighting for, he's being attacked from all angles, ice cold, and the likes of Precision, and he never seems to be that one guy that can break free of them all. But looking at the standings now, you've got Eric Strana in third. Okay, he's not far back from Wiesemüller, but he's been on really poor form, by his standards quite recently. He's been getting a few poor results together, and it's been a while since we've seen him right up there winning races, so he's not really looking as much of a threat as he could have been. And as you said, Peter Drivelar is actually missing the first race here tonight, and question marks remain over whether he'll be able to make the second race. So he's really out of the championship fight because that's going to cost him a whole heap of points. And then it just leaves Rasmus Salo, who's almost 60 points now. He's actually 64 points behind Butcher in the championship, so almost no chance of catching him. And it looks once again, Scott, as if it's going to be a THR fight down to the wire.
Quite possibly, but of course one thing we have to bear in mind is of course the new boys from Campfield Racing, and indeed they're now their new sister team, Campfield Junior, are certainly making their names heard. Adrian Campfield was fastest in practice, apparently with a lap of 1 minute 15.4, a lap that was set apparently without any help of a toe down the straights. So he is certainly on fire at the moment and definitely be able to put in some solid lap times. And speaking of lap times, Chris Butcher pops in straight away with a 15.594. to go quickest, with Ryan Calslotti in second. He was second with a 15.756, but now Miguel Neto has got into second with a 15.662. So, and that Campbell's just put in a 15.819, and he's immediately duped by Jake Walker. Then Andrew Waring puts in a 15.690. So the times are coming in very quickly because this is only a 10-minute qualifying session. You can go out as many times as you want, you can do as many laps as you feel you can in those 10 minutes, as the times are constantly changing as they start to get our first laps in for these guys as they put them in there. And already you can see Adrian Campfield in 8th quickest at the moment is up by almost a tenth of a second on his second flying lap as he heads through turn 4 and makes his way back towards the second half of the circuit. But John, we should really talk about Adrian Campfield because we did have a chat with some of the guys at Campfield Racing before the broadcast, and we need to let these guys know just what kind of a caliber driver we've got here in this championship. It is another one of these guys that has real racing experience, and he's done quite a lot. He's done Formula Ford, he's done plenty of karting, he's driven in the German ADAC Formula Masters, and even took part in a competition last year which could have potentially seen him race a V8 supercar at Bathurst. So that's exactly the kind of caliber of driver that we're dealing with here in this championship here, John.
Yeah, and if you watch the Velopark event, you'll know all about Adrian Campfield. Of course, to update those who weren't actually there, Adrian on his debut event alongside teammate Paul Patrick managed to grab 2 pole positions and what was provisionally 2 race wins as he jumps to the pole position in this session. But although he managed to win both races, unfortunately due to slightly, I think he was pushing the track limits a little bit too far in race 2, so was actually demoted to the 2nd place, which is what gave Andrew Waring and Aerostream their first top division win in the Touring Pro Series, like Scott mentioned earlier. So there was a lot of interesting things happened at Vela Park, and now the introduction of Campfield Jr. with, I believe it's Jake Walker and Alex Forward, you can see there in 10th and 14th. Those guys are all looking incredibly quick. Now, one thing that's quite interesting about them, although Adrian and Paul have been racing on the likes of iRacing for the last couple of years, they are relatively new to game stock car. And Jake Walker down in 10th and Alex Forward in 14th, they are actually brand new to sim racing. Those guys are 2 young karters that are making their way up through the professional ranks, as we now see a brilliant chopper cam of Adrian Campfield. But yeah, those guys are looking very good in real life racing. They've jumped over to the sim racing to give it a go, and they're obviously doing a great job, Scott, because they're right up there in practice, and they seem to be right up here so far in the qualifying session with a lot of time still to go. But we better keep an eye on Eric Tveit, and just as I say that, he's gone into the pits, so his purple lap is pretty irrelevant. But just before I hand you back over to Scott, the man who's popped up to 2nd place, Ryan Callan, as he said, is suffering from the sniffles today, so we all want to give our best wishes and prayers to hope Ryan makes a full recovery from his sniffles. But it looks like it's not affecting him too much as he's sitting there in 2nd.
Of course, I wanted to mention about Eric Tveit because, of course, earlier on in the past couple of days, of course, at the Virtual Carrera Cup, the meeting at Norris Ring, because Eric Tveit was a very prominent figure there. He put on a fantastic display to get himself on pole position for the first race, I believe, and then he was 2nd in the first race, and then the 2nd race, I'm just looking on the results screen so I can have a look, because I didn't get a chance to look at the 2nd race. Of course, you were commentating, John, so whereabouts did Eric finish in the 2nd race?
Sorry, was this Vela Park you're talking about?
No, for the Carreras at Norris Ring.
Oh, sorry. Well, I'm trying to remember. I think he struggled a lot in the first race. I think he had a couple of incidents and ended up in the pit lane. But in the 2nd race, he managed to fight back to pick up a top 5 finish. I can't remember exactly which position he ended up in, but he did have a slightly disappointing event. I mean, he did look like he had good pace, but the consistency wasn't quite there. But he has, obviously, as you said, jumped up to 1st, and Chris Butcher's on a purple lap. Let's see if he can go quicker as they cross the line. And he's only a 100th of a second off the ice cold driver, but it does put Chris up to 2nd position, which will help his championship cause a lot heading into this first race. Adrian Campfield's been demoted down to 3rd, and he'll definitely be looking to keep his 100% qualifying record intact. And as you can see, Ryan Callan for Walk Racing a surprising 4th at the moment.
What's also interesting is, of course, we've still got about another 3.5 minutes left to go in the session, but Robert Wiesenmüller down in 13th position. Of course, he's some 4/10 off pole position, but of course he's got plenty of time to set another lap time, and of course you see him there, the number 1. He's only about half a tenth off through the first sector, so he's still got a couple more laps left in him in order to try and haul his way back into the top 10. He's on a personal best right now, as are a couple of other drivers, including Thomas Madazewski and the Australian Reese Gardner, and Luis Fernandez as well. But one or two very surprising names that are outside of the top 10 for the moment. Of course, another one is Toby Davis back in 18th. So the THR, some of the more renowned THR guys, not that Chris Butcher isn't, of course, but some of the more renowned guys like RW and like Toby, for the moment at least, are either getting caught up in traffic or just not suited to how the car handles around this circuit, or effectively, the circuit itself, because this is a quite intriguing track. It's got a couple of slightly banked sections. I'm pretty sure that Turn 1 also slopes down a little bit as you head down there, so you can almost take it quicker than you think. If you go towards it, if we look at how RW right now into turn 1, as he goes into 8th position and now only 2/10 off pole position, you see it slopes downwards slightly, but it also has a slight gradient to it, as we see the times changing all the time. As now Eric Strana's gone quickest, and Adrian Campfield's also up there on a purple time as well, I think. At least, or either that, or he has either aborted his lap or is still on it. But it is a rather intriguing circuit. Now, of course, John, you haven't driven the circuit too much. You have in the past, but from what we've seen, of course, one thing I did learn from Mike Bell is that moves into turn 1 around the outside are not uncommon. They can happen, but if you see here, of course, there's a very fine margin for error here. Is that if you take the wrong line, you've got a lot of grass and also a lot of banks that can spit the car the other way and straight up into the air, into the undergrowth. So these guys are going to have to be very careful as to how they push it, because if they take liberties with this circuit, it will bite back.
Yeah, and I think the way turn 1 is shaped, even if you can make moves around the outside, it's going to be incredibly difficult in these minis. So it'll be very impressive to see some drivers pull off, but we'll wait and see. But obviously on the exit of the corner, as Scott was saying, if you do run wide, the momentum these cars are carrying, and also the short area of grass before the wall, could see you end up in that wall. and it could put an end to your race. So these guys have got to be very careful, but at the same time they have to push, because if in these minis it's all about getting to the front of the field and see if you can break away from a marauding pack, because as soon as you get involved in a fight that's not for the front position, you basically have no chance of winning. I mean, we've seen that a lot through this season. A good example of that was race 1 at Velo Park, when Adrian Campfield managed to break away from Paul Patrick and Chris Butcher, who were battling for second, and it did result in Paul Patrick making a mistake and crashing out of the race, but Chris was already too far back to do anything about the Flying Englishman, who went on to win the race. So it's all about staying with the lead pack, but on this track slipstreaming is pretty key, as Adrian's now heading through the EY, just completed his lap actually and remains in 4th, but let's see if we can get an onboard lap with somebody, or I think we might actually wait until the race or the warm-up session for that, as Eric Tveit pops up to 3rd on a 1:15.508. With only 20 seconds to go, I think we should probably just focus on the order at the moment instead of going for a lap on board with someone. But as you can see there, Eric Tveit, the Norwegian for Ice Cold, has popped up to 3rd position in a very impressive time, and he's been slightly underwhelming in the minis this season as well, suffering from quite a few incidents and disconnections, but Adrian Campfield is purple.
I was actually looking at the split times whilst you were talking about the circuit there, and of course Eric was actually a 10th up in Sector 1, so a magnificent time. As Lauritsen goes to pole position with a 15.398.
Stunning lap.
So a great lap from the THR Blue driver, absolutely. Of course, this is a man who has recently just managed to get himself a seat in this season's VW Scirocco R Cup, which is of course the same championship that one Kelvin van der Linde took victory in last year, and of course he has been a TPS regular, including appearing in a couple of rounds of the Virtual Carrera Cup. We look at Adrian Campfield now as he brings the number 42 Mini and the default Touring Pro Series livery down the pit straight, and let's see if he can improve at all across the line. And he stays 6th, 1:15.562. But Andrew Waring is up there, a quarter of a tenth off, but he's being held up by, I think, one of the small power cars. Is that possibly Lewis McWade, maybe, or one of them in front? But anyway, he is. It could be either Andy van der Velde, possibly either one of them. If that is Andy, of course, he's also suffering with a bit of illness, as is Ryan Callan. So at least Ryan's not alone in there in the fact that he's in the sniffle wars. But at least in terms of the two ill drivers, of course, Ryan is the one that's up there a little bit high. He's in 7th at a 1:15.575, and Andy van der Velde's on a 1:15.700. So that's pretty intriguing. In fact, it is Andy van der Velde. It's Toby Davis, only 13th in qualifying for car number 20, and he promptly puts it into a slide as someone else throws their mini off into the tyres. And that's quite intriguing. It's actually Luis Fernandez, in fact, not, as we predicted, Andy van der Velde. So Fernandez stays 14th, and no change for Andrew Waring, who stays in 5th. So we have the times, and I think, to be fair, I think we possibly, from what we've seen in practice, John, I think we were probably expecting Adrian Campfield to take pole position, but it does show that experience in TPS and with these minis does pay off, because the guys who have been around here for that length of time, like Lauritsen, Strana, Butcher, Tveit, and Waring, they have been able to get the most out of a lap. But it does prove effectively that Adrian Campfield's learning curve isn't that high, because if it is that high, he's able to scale it very quickly. Because 6th place, after getting what was a surprise but very pleasant pole position back at Velo Park, you have to admit, this guy's made a fantastic impression on his debut.
Yeah, definitely, and I think he might actually be a little bit disappointed with a 6th position, which is something you're not often saying for a guy who's only done one Touring Pro Series event. But I think it's actually quite a good spectacle for the Touring Pro Series, and shows that, you know, someone, no matter how fast he is, can't just come in and start dominating the field every, you know, day in, day out. Obviously, Adrian took a couple of pole positions at Velo Park, and managed to get one win plus a 2nd place after the penalties were done. So him down in 6th in qualifying just shows you, that the standard of Touring Pro Series is at the highest level, and it's not possible for someone, no matter how fast they are, to just come in and jump straight to the top. But Alexander Lauritsen, you'd have to say a bit of a surprise pole position, because although we know how quick Alex is, and obviously he's in his new team THR, and actually a bit of news about Alex, because he has now won himself a drive in the Scirocco Cup for next season, so he's having a great week so far, and this will only make it better. But yeah, Alex, a slight surprise, considering we haven't really seen too much of him in the practice sessions. He hasn't been around for the last few rounds, but he's definitely, made a point there by flinging on the pole position.
Of course, you can keep in touch with everything that TPS is doing, of course, by the various social networks that we are all a part of. Of course, if you want to keep tabs with us on Facebook, you can give us a like, facebook.com/TouringProSeries. If you've got Twitter, fancy sending us a tweet, it's at Touring_Pro. And of course, if you miss any other part of the broadcast, of course, either you've gone to get a drink or a snack, you've gone to the toilet, of course, or whatever it is, you can catch every single broadcast that we do in full back on the TPS YouTube page. Just search Touring Pro Series, hit subscribe, and every time we upload a broadcast in full, which is practically only about half an hour to an hour after the actual race itself, it'll be straight up there in your subscriptions feed, ready for you to watch whenever you want, of course. And of course, you can keep tabs with everything that's also going on the website, of course, TouringProSeries.com, and also at the forums that are hosted by our friends over at Inside Sim Racing. Of course, do be sure to also give them a subscribe on YouTube, because they are one of the best sim racing channels around. They do game and hardware reviews as well as weekly and monthly updates as to what's going on in the world of sim racing. So InsideSimRacing.tv. So we're now just under 2 minutes into the warm-up session left before we get into our first race of the weekend here at Taruma. And I guess what should we really be looking for here, John, in terms of what we have in the championship? Because of course, what's intriguing is the fact that these brand new guys at Campfield, they are quite a catalyst. Of course, they're not in a championship fight. They've come in the middle of the season to try and test their mettle against the best that TPS has to offer on what is arguably one of the best sim racing base platforms around in game stock car, which is of course uses the same G motor engine that R Factor uses, but of course has been tweaked up by the geniuses at Riser Studios. And it really has been recognised as possible, as touted by some, as the best sim racing software out there in terms of game stock car, which is saying a lot for these guys who started out as individual modders and have now gone on to an actual publishing studio in their own right. And of course, they've been able to take what Image Space Incorporated have done with the R Factor engine and just tweaked it and made it even better. And I think that these guys are really echoing that it's a fantastic platform to race and also to learn racecraft and learn how to drive a car such as the Mini on these kind of circuits. I mean, it's a sim that is so good that even Rubens Barrichello, a man who of course has been a Ferrari driver and had come close to the World Championship in Formula 1 many times, he advocates it because he races in it very regularly with his son. So it just shows that if you've got ex-Grand Prix drivers of that stature racing on a sim like game stock car, this isn't kid stuff. This is serious, and this is also a major piece of software which all these guys are advocating and saying, you know, if we can use it, so can you.
Yeah, definitely. But before we head into the race, we're just going to take a very quick look at the upcoming events in the Touring Pro Series. Next up on Saturday will be the Virtual Supertech Series live from Brasilia, so tune in at 5:50 GMT for that one. And then the following Wednesday will be the very exciting Virtual Touring Masters Championship coming to you live from the Oostenrijk Ring, so don't forget to tune in for that one at 7:45. And then the following Saturday, so that's a week this Saturday now, is the Virtual Carrera Cup Round 5 from Thruxton. A brilliant, fast-flowing British track. Definitely a fan favourite circuit for all you sim racers out there and real racers alike. So don't forget to tune in to that one. And also, very quickly, before we take you and run down through the grid and these guys complete their formation laps, we'll just have a quick look at the spotter guide to give you an idea of what the liveries are going to look like, so you can find out what your favourite driver's car looks like, and also you can see how many points they've scored. So that is your spotter guide, and I'll leave that up for just a few seconds longer. So Scott, I'm going to ask you quickly before we start the grid for your predictions for this one.
This is going to be a bit of a tricky one, of course. I would love to say, because it'd be great to see him win, possibly Adrian Campfield from row 3. I haven't seen him, of course, any of his racecraft yet, because I haven't actually been able to see any of the Velo Park stuff, so I don't know exactly what he's like for overtaking. Of course, I'm sure you can advocate that for what you saw in the second race, at least, when he had to try and fight back through the field. But if Adrian can pull off some great moves, I think definitely he's got a chance of at least getting himself a podium. As for the guys at the front that are up there and fighting for the championship, this is again another opportunity where Chris Butcher needs to make the most of the fact that Robert Wiesemüller didn't have a qualifying session that obviously could, for him, he probably feels could and should have been better, because he's down there near the bottom of the top 10, and of course whereas Chris is now up there on the first couple of rows. So but he needs to take advantage of that pretty quickly and just pounce on that and make the most of his start on the opening couple of laps and keep it out of trouble, and hope that the guys in front of him like Lauritsen, Strano and Tavai don't come to blows in the first couple of corners. If Butcher can keep his nose clean and keep his head whilst everyone around him is losing theirs, should that happen, then I think possibly he could be a favourite because he has been the most consistent over this season. So I think possibly the winner's going to be, I think, either Chris Butcher or, if he can spring another surprise, Adrian Campfield. How about you, John?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't really disagree with that, but Campfield has a lot of work to do from 6th. I think the Ice Cold Boys are looking good for this one. But just very quickly, we're going to take you through the grid. So the back 16 guys, in 31st is Matt Emmons, and starting in 30th is Nico Schweinzer. In 29th is Scott Sovic for Airstream, with David Nannon in 28th. Ethan Bass will be starting 27th, with Duarte Lopez alongside him. Matt Richards is in 25th with Pedro Amaral for EKT Portugal in 24th. Lewis McGlade for Smile Power will be starting in 23rd behind Shell Stenbeck. Arichus Razvan is in 21st with Reese Gardner, our official pole sitter, after some, even though Adrian got the pole position physically, Reese managed to get the pole position award to him on that one due to some cutting, so that's him in 20th. Jonathan Ockerclint in 19th with Xavier Di Carvalho in 18th. Ben Hackson will be starting in 17th, so Scott, if you can quickly take us through the top 16.
Yeah, absolutely. Alex Forward 16th, Jimmy Hughes 15th, then Fernandez 14th, Davis 13th, Andy van der Velde 20th, Malazewski 11th, and on the top 10, Reese Mueller, Neto, Jake Walker, who's all starting his first race, Ryan Callan, Adrian Campfield, Andrew Waring, Eric Tveit, Chris Butcher, and then on the front row, it is Eric Strana and Alexander Lauritsen, who are, of course, Lauritsen will be on the right-hand side in car 48, and in car 71, the red and white car of Eric Strana is on the left. Final couple of the cars getting into position, and we are all set for the first of 20 laps here in race 1 of the weekend at Taruma. Here come the lights. The revs are going to rise, and race 1 here at Taruma is away. We are racing here for round 5 of the Virtual Mini Challenge. Good start from Alexander Lauritsen as he holds the inside line towards turn 1. Butcher with a superb getaway. Look at that, up to 2nd place already. But Eric Tveit trying to force his way up the inside. He's already got past his teammate into 3rd position. But we see Strana trying to dive back up the inside through turn 2. He may have the line as Waring's down to 5th position. Campfield is still in 6th and boxed in at the moment. He's got Ryan Callan and Miguel Neto hunting him down in 7th and 8th as they head down towards the hairpin for the first time. And it's still Lauritsen who leads it. And there's carnage in the background. A couple of cars, and Toby Davis is involved. Toby Davis went over and around. That was in car number 20. And we've also got car 98. That is, if you can scroll through, that's Alex Forward.
It's Alex Forward.
So one of the Campfield Junior guys already in trouble. And here's the replay. You can see what happened as Toby Davis' car takes a huge whack. Here's the tyres.
It's both.
It's both the TH Orange guys. So Malazewski went in also. That's a disastrous start for the TH Orange guys. They've lost possibly both of their cars, or at least put them down to the back of the field. But as the field come through, it's now Lauritsen who leads it, and behind they're almost 2 by 2 as Lauritsen brings it onto the pit straight. Look at this, as you see Chris Butcher's been shuffled back to 4th position, and could lose another one if he's not careful, because Andrew Waring's coming through in 5th place, as they're always going side by side. Then lap 1, and Waring giving Strana the bump drafts as they head into turn once again, and Butcher on the outside. Huge sideways moment from Butcher, and that allowed Andrew Waring back up through into 5th position. And now the Canadian might have a look up the inside of Strana if he leaves him enough room. Where it might force the issue, but he can't get his nose in front. And also then Callan's in 6th position now, looking to try and hunt down the championship leader. So Butcher, after a fantastic start, John, he's starting to slip backwards. If he's not careful, he might fall into the clutches of his teammate, who actually is only a couple of places away in 9th.
Yeah, Chris is right in the dangerous territory at the moment, but a stunning start to this race in terms of, overtaking into turn 1. Just a fantastic race so far, and we're in for a treat here at Taruma. This track does provide the racing. And there goes Butcher down to 6th now, but we've got change for the lead, as Scott said. As Lauritsen runs wide, it looked like we almost had a spinner there. Tveit tries to stay to the inside line. He gets the run on Lauritsen, and he is easily through. And Eric Tveit takes the lead away from the Dane. And then we have the battling Andrew Waring and Eric Strachan. Now, Andrew for Airstream is actually aiming for the podium here today after getting his first official win last time out. But a podium he thinks is, the least what he can manage, so that's why he's in the good position at the moment.
I think Butcher's really dropping back. He's down to 11th. He's outside the top 10. In fact, Robert Beastman has gone around him. So I'm not sure what entirely has happened. And let's see, we've got a replay here. This is on board with Butcher. That was diving up the inside. I think it must have been Jimmy Hughes. He's got across the grass, it looks like. So and that's what happened. So it was contact with Ryan Callan. And you said there was some contact in the background. I think that was possibly started. I did see the EKT Portugal car of Miguel Neto get sideways. So maybe that was caused it. I think possibly, I'm going to make a guess here, that Neto hit Callan, and then Callan, with the domino effect, hit hit Butcher, and that's what put him off into the undergrowth across the grass and lost him several places. We're seeing Adrian Campfield forcing his way past Callan into P5, as now it's a gaggle of cars as they head down towards turns 5 and 6, and then the kink down towards 7. As now we see Callan back up the inside, but he's gone too deep, and that allows Campfield back in to retain the place. And now Callan's got to be careful because Robert Wiesenmuller in the second, in fact it's the leading THR Red Machine, is now putting the pressure on the very ill Callan in 7th place. And Miguel Neto in 8th, who I believe possibly may have caused that incident which could possibly put Chris Butcher back down the field. He is already back up into 10th place and chasing down Luis Fernandez for Smile Power. And we're now seeing the rear view, and you see coming alongside Robert Wiesenmuller, the reigning champion, is Miguel Neto. He's got the line into turn 1 and makes a beautiful pass. But can he hold it? He's sideways, and somehow with a brilliant piece of car control holds on to it, but he has lost the place again. And also just coming through is Luis Fernandez for Smile Power, so I'm pretty sure that Mike Bell will be happy with that one, but he won't be happy seeing Fernandez getting sideways. As just in front I can see there is a small battle going on for... So look at Butcher trying to get around the outside. That's never going to work, 3 wide, and also coming up the outside Jimmy Hughes. And that's for the final top 10 place as they swing through turn 4 once again on lap 4 of 20. And so the order, as they're still side by side for the lead and for 3rd position. Small piece of contact between Waring and Strana in the background, but here come the leaders down towards the hairpin, and it is still Tveit who leads. And he's now taken the top position away from Alexander Lauritsen, our pole sitter, as Waring now turns his way up in 3rd place with Strana in 4th. But these top 2 guys, the battles for 1st and 3rd, John, are absolutely incredible, as it seems to have calmed down a little bit, but of course Butcher's got it all to do in 10th. The question is going to be, in these next 16 laps, how many places can he make up? And can he possibly get around his teammate without too many fireworks?
Yeah, and I mean, Chris is down in 10th position. This is the exact kind of situation where Robert Wiesenmuller, he needs to be right at the front of these races, and we know he can if he puts in the effort. Obviously, last year, reigning champion. We know he's got the capability of being right up there, so he'd be disappointed to be down in 7th. And I was a bit, disappointed with Wiesenmuller. He did sound a bit downhearted after the last few rounds because Chris has just been quicker than him consistently, and I think Robert feels like he's kind of given up in the championship. But this is the kind of situation. Chris is down in 10th. He looks very rattled and looks like there's a big chance he could get involved in another incident in the mid-pack, and this is the kind of time where Robert needs to be taking bigger advantage than he is in that special THR Red one-off livery. By the looks of things, it is great to look at, but unfortunately it's not doing the business for him now down in 7th. He really does need to get higher up the order, but it's Ryan Callan in 6th, Adrian Campfield in 5th position, the battling Eric Strana and Andrew Waring in 3rd and 4th, as this also a habit of the minis seems to be battles in groups of 2. We see it almost every round where guys are side by side into every corner, and it always seems to be in groups of 2s with gaps between them. But yeah, this is a stunning race so far. Taruma providing fantastic action. We'll see if we can get a lap on board with our lead battle here. So it's Lauritsen versus Tveit. As look how close he gets to the back of the Ice Cold Mini. He's looking to the outside, but he pulls back into the slipstream. And just look how close he gets to the back of it with that Save the Ring sponsorship on the Ice Cold car. Well, Alex, have a look down into turn 1. He doesn't. Campfield sets the fastest lap of the race, meanwhile, on a 15.361, which would have seen him on the front row in the qualifying session. But you can see they're heading through turn 1 now, heading down towards the second corner right now, and Lauritsen's really putting the pressure on the Norwegian.
And what's interesting now is that we've now got a breakaway pack of about the top 5 are all together, and they're starting to pull away from the rest of the field, and the best of the rest in 6th appears to be... Oh! And that was Campfield giving Strana in relation to turn 4, getting a little bit impatient, and I'm pretty sure the Norwegian won't appreciate that, as just in front, the leaders are side by side again. It's Tveit and Lauritsen round 3, I think it's almost. And Tveit keeps his nose in front for the moment, but Lauritsen's looking racing, and of course, this is all allowing... But this is bringing Waring, Strana and Campfield into the mix. Strana wearing a little bit wide on the exit of the hairpin. But it's fantastic, almost 5-car train for the lead, and of course for the podium positions as they turn their way through the final corner. This long, slightly banked, small little kind of camber on the exit as we've got a couple of cars going wide as they use all the tarmac in the background. Then this huge gaggle of cars behind for 6th to 10th, so they're all in packs of 5 now. Looking at Fernandez, who's now trying to pull to the inside of at least Robert Wiesenmuller. Can he get himself in front for 7th? Yes, he can. As they move in, and look at that. What's also interesting, the 2 THR Red guys are side by side. These guys are first and second in the championship, as they were last year. And Butcher gets the line and the job done to move into 8th position. So it looks like there was a bit of friendly rubbing and rubbing of door handles between each other, but looks like there wasn't too much drama. As Tveit is still leading, but look at that. Andrew Waring trying to go around the outside for Aerostream in third position, but can't get it done because you see that Alexander Lauritsen holds that black and blue THR Mini number 48, second car on your picture. There he is, just holding on to that second position. And of course now Strana and Kampfer are having to sit here just patiently and just wait for a mistake and just make sure they can at least hold on to the tail of these three, because they know that if one small slip up from any of these guys, if one of them makes contact with any of the others, then that'll cause a bit of a chain reaction, and they have to be alert. As Tveit takes a slightly wider run through the final corner to get himself a better slingshot onto the pit straight, but look at the draft these guys are going to get as they come onto the start and finish lines to complete lap 7. And as we head towards half distance in race 1, as they charge down towards the first corner, they almost go through as one. As then the second 5-car pack streams through, which is being headed again by Callan. As we see Tveit a little bit wide, but Kampfer was having a look up the inside of Strana. Did he get that done? He is going along side by side with the Swede. And if there was any contact, we didn't quite see it, but they were definitely close enough to at least trade paint. And Kampfer is up into 4th position, so he definitely does have some racecraft as Adrian. Obviously something that he's learned from his days in karting and Formula Fords, especially the ADAC Formula Masters over in Germany, where he made most of his success in racing. And we're looking back here that we've lost Robert Wiesemuller. Robert Wiesemuller is out of the first race here at Taruma. That disconnection, or is that possibly a technical problem of some sort? Looks as though it could be possibly just a pure disconnection, because he's there one moment and the next minute he's back in the pits.
It almost looks like he accidentally pressed escape, but that's remarkably bad luck for Robert Wiesemuller. Just as things were looking his way, with Chris Butcher being far down the field, he's had to retire from the race, and that is game over for him in the championship, unless anything major happens to Butcher. But this is absolutely stunning racing we have here today, Scott. This really is unmissable action. This is what sim racing's all about. As we say so many times in the minis, it's Tveit from Lauritsen. Campfield and Waring make it about 17 wide going into turn 1. Oh, and they're going to go groups of 2. Campfield up to 2nd place. Lauritsen gets shuffled back to 3rd, and he's now got Strana down the inside. He gets sideways, and he makes more contact with Strana. He's sandwiching him into the corner. Lauritsen looking for 2nd again. Meanwhile, Eric Tveit is scampering off into the distance, but it's Campfield 2nd, Lauritsen 3rd, Eric Strana 4th, and Andrew Waring 5th. And there's 2 groups of 5 cars, which has obviously now been reduced due to the disconnection of Wiesemuller. This is absolutely stunning stuff. Taruma providing great racing. There's changes of position every single corner, but the man who's running away at the moment, look at that, he's got 1.1 second lead. Tveit is checking out at the moment, Scott.
And what's key is effectively, sometimes it's quite hard to break away, and what you have to do is capitalise on the fact that if the guys behind are battling so much, you can break away and get that gap. And once you've got it, it's very difficult for the guys to catch them unless they all decide to work together in some shape or form and use the slipstream that they'll grab from each other in order to try and move forwards. And whilst you were talking there, John, I did notice that Chris Butcher has got around Ryan Callan, excuse me, and now you might have to be careful, because Callan is looking to try and get that place back, because he's possibly been a little bit rattled by that pass. Not that there was any contact that I could see, but of course he'll be determined. Of course, the fact that he's feeling under the weather will only spur him on a little bit more. Back to the battle for what is now 2nd, and was there more contact as they head into turn 1, but Campfield's holding on to 2nd place. What's interesting is that he's come here to make friends, and after this race, all the contact he's been involved with, he may come away from this race weekend with a few enemies of his own as they head into turns 2 and 3. And look at just how close Andrew Waring is as he's always pushing Eric Strana along down towards turns 3, and then the very tight turn 4. He's going to make a dive up the inside. Can the Canadian make the move? Strana's brave to hold it around the outside, and Lauritsen forcing his way through. What a brilliant pass that was to get around Adrian Campfield. As now Strana comes back at Waring on the exit as they run down towards the kinks of 6 and 7. And here's the side-by-side, the braking duel into the right-hander, and I think Strana's got the line, unless Waring's brave enough to hold it around the outside, and he might be, but he's going to be run out of room if he's not careful, and decides wisely to slot back in and try and fight for another day, as they head now back to end another lap. And of course already we're halfway through this first race, once Eric Tveit crosses the stripe to complete lap 10 of 20. And here they come then, so Tveit leads, Lauritsen 2nd, then it's Campfield 3rd, Strana in 4th with the big Swedish flag on the roof of his car, and of course Tveit is the young 15-year-old Norwegian with the flag of his nation adorned on top of his car, and the same with Andrew Waring in 5th position, the Canadian flag on top of his Airstream car. And in the background, look at this. This is Matt Richards holding off both Reece Gardner and Jonathan Osserklin, and also Kel Stenbeck as well. So these two guys are going into combat. This is Stenbeck and Osterklint, the two Optimum Sim Racing guys, dueling over the more minor places. This is 14th, and 15th and 16th place, with Lewis McBlade doing a fantastic job in 17th, just behind, and looking to try and help out his teammate, who is just a couple of cars in front. You can see him, car 94. And there goes, we've lost. As
Shell Stenbeck
finds the limit.
Oh,
He's
no!
been collected. Who was that? Was that
Alex Forward.
It was Alex Forward. So the Campfield Junior driver, it was caught out there through no fault of his own. I think, really, to be fair, Shell possibly could have used his mirrors a little bit more.
He was impatient,
to prevent
yeah,
that
definitely.
accident, because that really, he came across the track when he really didn't need to. He should have possibly held back, and I think he was a bit too impatient to rejoin the race.
Yeah, and I think that's really affected Alex Forward's race because, of course, he was an innocent bystander in that one. And those guys are having a bit of a disaster. Him and Jake Walker way down the field, near the bottom end of the points. I think Jake's actually out of the points at the moment. But it was a case of both of them getting involved in the first incident with the THR Yellow guys. So those two teams having a nightmare. And THR in general just really not getting it here today. I mean, outside of Lauritsen's the only THR driver in that top 5 fight. And then you've got Chris Butcher down in 6th. And then after that, all you have is the 2 retired THR Yellow cars, or I believe Toby's still running, but way down the field, and also the retirement of Robert Wiesenmuller. So it's a bit of a disaster for THR, and it's Ice Cold and Campfield Racing and also Aerostream that are benefiting from the moment.
What's incredible is that we almost have a 7-car truck, the top 7 by less than 2.5 seconds on lap 12 of 20 here, the first race of Taruma, round 5 of the Virtual Mini Challenge 2014, presented by TouringProSeries. And Erik Tveit, the young 15-year-old Norwegian, is at the head of this field. And we look back from his number 48. No, it's not number 48. It's I'm trying to think now. I'm speechless because I'm looking at Lauritsen. He's giving a bit of a hurry up. Car 83. There we go. Look at the number. The Oscar Racing car. And now look at this. It's once again the situation where Lauritsen keeping a shove, and now Tveit's opened up the door, and Lauritsen's getting a push now from Campfield. Campfield now switches to the outside down towards turn 1. Is he going to get hung up to dry, or does he have enough confidence in this car to get it around? The answer is yes, he does.
Welcome Chris Butcher to the field.
And Chris Butcher, he has now come back up to 6th. He's on the tail of this pack now. Callum's foot fallen away, but he's still there in 7th place in almost kind of no man's land. So he's going to have to go some and call on some extra energy reserves. And then we've got Lauritsen diving up the inside and Tveit into turn 4, formerly of the race, and gets it done, but runs too deep. And then goes to Tveit. Campbell may go with him. Campbell could maybe get 2 places in the space of 1 move, as he did earlier on into turn 1. And the answer is he doesn't. He gets shuffled back to 3rd place, where possibly Lauritsen would like him to stay for the moment. But now looking back to the battle for 4th, we're seeing Strana under attack from Waring, and Chris Butcher, what a comeback he's having. He dropped back down to 11th. It was right here he got fired off by contact with Callum, I think through no fault of his own. And now he finds himself possibly looking back at a top 5 place, and surely he's going to be in the plum seat. It's capitalised. Oh! Campbell gets sideways. Surely there was some contact between him and I think maybe Lauritsen or Strana. Maybe I have to look at that on the replay later on. But back down the pit straight they come. It's the sensational 6. It's Tveit, Lauritsen, Campfield, Strana, Waring and Butcher. Look at that, 7/10 of a second separates them as they head into the first corner. Here's the replay, and it was contact. Campfield hitting the rear of Lauritsen. Did that cause
almost
damage?
took the
We'll have
place.
to wait and see. But it was absolutely incredible. And looking back to the front, look at these 6.
This
it's
is incredible.
I thought Londrina in season 1 was fantastic. This is much better, and it's a lot cleaner as well.
Just want to see the view from Chris Butcher's car because this is stunning. What we're seeing right here is, speaking of Chris Butcher, oh, what a great time to jump to him. Plows into the side of Ice Cold driver, too aggressive, but just look at this, Scott. We've got about 6 wide heading through the left-hander at turn 3, I believe, turn 4, or was it turn 2? I don't even know where we are on the track. You can't see because all the cars are in the way, but this is just stunning what we're having here. Overtakes every corner. There goes Waring down the inside. We get a great shot on board with Chris of what this race is all about, and as a driver these guys will be laughing. This will be the funnest race, one of the funnest races they've taken part in, because there's just so much action. There's moves every single corner, and you know, a slight mistake or just maybe a good draft can see you go from 1st to 6th and vice versa. So this is absolutely stunning what we're seeing here. And as there's a big domino effect there. As Strana gets sideways, Campfield got sideways, and Butcher almost got sideways as well. And now Callan's involved in the battle, and we're going to see 7 cars This is the longest mini limo I've ever seen in my life heading into turn 1, but it's Eric Tveit who leads, albeit a bit irrelevantly because the positions can change so easily from Lauritsen, Waring, Campfield, Strana and Butcher. But this is just incredible, and we're about to lose the driver, but Waring keeps it under control, keeps it on the track just about, and he'll drop back into the pack. He hasn't even lost a position, might have lost it to Campfield, but manages to hold on to the 4th place. But this, I'm speechless, this is incredible stuff.
He's might have lost 2 or 3. Is where he gets very ambitious around the outside, saying, "Come on, boys, let me keep my position." And Callan tries to get involved almost on the exit, but just couldn't. Gets his nose just swiped off there from from Andrew Waring as they head down almost 2 by 2. Hurrah! Down towards turn 8. As we see Campbell now to 3rd position. Now he's Waring going to go with him on the exit. Not quite, because Strana holds it in front. Butcher's going to sit back and think, just scruff amongst yourselves, boys. That's for Ryan Callan. He may as well get the popcorn out at this point, because this is a fantastic battle. And speaking of battles for the lead now, once again, it's Tveit versus Lauritsen all over again. As Tveit gets a small nudge from Lauritsen, just to remind him, saying, I'm here in 2nd place, trying to grab the lead from you. And down the pit straight they come again. And a great toe, and let's see where Lauritsen's going to go this time. Will he risk the outside move, will he dart to the inside? The answer to that is none of those, because it actually goes into turn 1. And also there was a 2 wide effect going on there. I think there's contact between Waring and also Butcher, Callan, sorry. And what also, Campbell is now in 3rd. I thought we'd lost him. He's now in 3rd position. And look at that, he's right on the rear end now of Alexander Lauritsen. So look at these guys. It's on lap 16. Oh! And Campbell looking to the outside. There was going to be 3 wide down towards
He's going for the lead.
Last of a late breakers, can he sweep across? He's got to cross Lauritsen. Can he get on the inside now to try and get the lead from Tveit? The answer is no, he can't, because Lauritsen's there. And now they're going to be side by side. Oh. Campbell makes contact with the door of Lauritsen, almost gets fired off into the barrows across the grass. And Strana gets himself involved. He's pulled away from the 3 cars behind him, trying to go down the outside. Small piece of contact as Lauritsen hits Tveit. Campbell into 2nd place, and now Strana's going to get him back on the exit. This is sensational racing between these guys at the front. A 4-way scrap for the lead, and Campbell's going to go for it as he heads down towards the final corner. Can he get his nose in front? No, he can't, because Tveit holds on. Strana trying to go around the outside.
Look at that!
Campbell, this is absolutely sensational, and Butcher's getting himself involved. Waring's gone wide onto the grass, and that brings Callan with him as well. They're 2 by 2 down the pit straight on that at the beginning, lap 17. Strana trying to go round the outside. Okay, yes he can! Oh! That's incredible for Eric Strana. What an absolute sensational pass from the Swedish driver to get into the lead around the outside of turn 1. We said it was possible. I didn't think it would actually happen. That is absolutely incredible. So Strana now leads it from Tveit, from Lauritsen, from Campfield, Butcher, Callan and Waring, and Fernandez and Nesso are getting involved. So it's a 9-car fight. This is absolutely incredible. I'm not sure if we're going to have any breath left by the end of this, John. You take over, because I need a drink. This is
I don't know how Ryan Callan must be feeling at this situation. He's probably going to fall asleep soon, just of pure tiredness. This is absolutely breathtaking stuff. And Eric Strana, we were told by Mike Bell the move that would happen, and we weren't quite sure of it, we weren't convinced. But on the most crucial point of the race, Eric Strana from nowhere, the man who was 3rd in the championship, and I'm sure he'll take 2nd with the retirement of Wiesenmuller, as we see a great view from the curb of them heading through the corner. But yeah, out of nowhere, it's a nice cold 1-2. We've got Strana ahead of Tveit, but those last couple of laps is what sim racing and the virtual mini challenge in particular is all about. Close, exciting racing. You've got changes of position every corner, and okay, there's a few bumps and bashes along the way, unavoidable, but even then, it's incredibly clean, exciting racing, and I'm sure these guys, would all shake their hands after this and say, a great race. There would be no hard feelings. Unless we still to see any controversial incidents, but nothing that's been too major. This has just been absolutely breathtaking, and yeah, I cannot describe how much I'm enjoying this race here from Taruma.
2.1 seconds covers the top, and I bet it's 2.2 now, and the positions can change and have changed in the twinkling of an eye as the back of the train, as Butcher's almost sideways into turn 4. What happened there?
He's at
around the outside, hits the back of Campbell, and Callan's back up the inside, and Waring's been shuffled back to at 7th. And he holds on for the moment. This is absolutely sensational. But Ice Cold are in plum seats. They've got 1st and 2nd. But for how much longer as we watch Butcher up the inside of Callan? Is he going to make contact? No, he doesn't. But he does push Callan a little bit wide, which will allow Waring up the inside into 6th position. Callan's back down to 7th. And now Butcher will try and make a move on Campfield to get up into 4th position. He needs all the points he can get, especially with the fact that Wiesenmuller, his championship rival and teammate, is not in this race anymore. He retired after the first few laps of what we believe was a disconnection. The back onto the pit straight. We have just 2 laps remaining, and we've still got another race to go. This will be absolutely sensational. Butcher now to the outside of Adrian Campfield, down towards turn 1. Can he make a move that Strana made down into turn 1? He'll try, but he's not brave enough. He doesn't have the grip or the confidence left in that Mini to try and get himself, but he has got the inside line down towards turn 2, but he couldn't pull himself up so far enough alongside. Gets tagged by Andrew Waring through turn in the middle of the corner, and now here comes Callan. He gets tagged again by Waring. Waring wants to get literally inside of Chris Butcher's boot lid. He's pushing so hard. Callan making a late braking move down to the outside, and his line's been blocked by Butcher as they head through. Just behind, I can see that Fernandez and Nato are going side by side on the exit, and looks like Fernandez did get that move done, or at least remained in front. Callan and Waring now going 2 by 2 down towards turn 8, and let's see what Waring can do this time. Can he hold on? Can he get around the outside? No, in fact what he's done, he's tagged Butcher in the middle of the corner, and now gets it. There's Waring, goes off onto the grass, comes back, clips the rear of Callan's car, but it remains in position. And now as they head down towards the final corner to start the final lap, as Butcher gets very sideways, he ran a little too deep under pressure. There goes Callan into 5th position. How is this going to shake out with 1 lap to go? Look at also Fernandez in 8th position getting involved, and also Miguel Neto. There's now just literally, there's 1.18 miles left of this race. Who is it going to be? It's anyone's call as they head into turn 1. And Strana leads by half a second from Tveit, from Lauritsen. Campfield in 4th position has dropped back a tiny bit. Then we've got Callan, Butcher in 6th, Waring, Fernandez and Nato. This has been an incredible race. How's this going to play out, John? Because I'm not even sure myself. We've got almost 3/4 of a lap left. It could be anyone's game.
If I was a betting man right now, I'd be putting my money on this guy, Xavier De Carvalho, if you can see why. I mean, he's the man who's in the best position at the moment, because look at this. I'm amazed that these guys, none of them have seemed to have gone off yet, but from nowhere, suddenly Miguel Neto is effectively fighting for the lead, because we have, we have a 9-car train here for them. I mean, look at this. This is absolutely crazy, but it's Eric Strana who is leaping away at the front there. His teammate Tveit at the moment defending for his life to make it a nice cold 1-2. And there goes Lauritsen down the outside of Eric Tveit as we head into the last couple of corners.
Here they come then. This is it. This will be decided race 1 here at Taruma, down to the final corner for the last time. Strana looks like he'll get it unless he makes a huge mistake. I don't think he will. He'll hold it clean for the moment. But with a run out to the final corner as they fire themselves onto the pit straight, and after one of the best races I think we'll ever see in TPS, it's Eric Strana who comes out on top. Who's going to get second? Is it Tveit or Lauritsen as a drag race down towards the line? And it is Lauritsen who just misses out. Tveit gets second, Lauritsen third, Campfield 4th, Callan 5th. Waring got 6th on the line. A couple of tenths ahead of Chris Butcher, with Fernandez 8th, Neto 9th, and Xavier De Carvalho in 10th. Jimmy Hughes finishes 11th ahead of Andy van der Velde in 12th. Matt Richards gets 13th. Lewis McGlade 14th, and Jonathan Osserklint in 15th. Ethan Bass 16th. Ashok Razvan 17th. Alex Forward, after his troubles, is back down in 18th place. David Danner finishes 19th, and a top 20 finish for Scott Sovic. Me and John are going to get our breath for a couple of minutes. You stay put. We'll come back after these messages, and we'll try and dissect what was an absolutely sensational race 1 here at Taruma. Eric Strana's your winner. Still got one more to come. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be electric. Back in 2.
Inside SimRacing.tv, the fastest show on the internet. Sim racing news and reviews since 2007, with new shows every week.
And welcome back to the aftermath of what was, I think, quite possibly one of the best TPS races possibly in history, because of everything that happened and all the overtakes that we had. And if you've just joined us, you have missed one hell of a race, and be sure to catch it back, all the broadcast in full, on the YouTube page, youtube.com/TouringProSeries. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, be sure to do so. Just search TouringProSeries and click that little subscribe button. And every single broadcast that we do here at TPS gets uploaded in full for you to watch back at your leisure whenever you wish and whenever it is convenient. But we have to dissect this, John. What a race we just had. We had 20 laps of non-stop action. And the fact that we had the top 10 were covered by less than 3 seconds it just proves the level of competition in TPS, and what a fantastic championship the Virtual Mini Challenge is. That was simply epic. We had lead changes, battles, we had contact, and thankfully for the majority of it, it was mostly clean. I think that's what made it one of the better races, the fact they were battling so hard, but there was minimal contact, and if there was, it was just a friendly bit of rubbing and rubbing of door handles, really. It was absolutely brilliant, and I hope the second race is just as amazing.
Yeah, I am actually honoured to be commentating and watching that race, because that was an absolute pleasure to be part of that experience. That is what sim racing is all about. We're having a few messages from some drivers that are pretty unhappy, but I mean, from what we saw, as you said, Scott, yeah, there was a bit of bumping, yes, there was a bit of bashing, but it seemed to be what goes around comes around, and it was all within the respect of good racing. We didn't see no intentional smashes. We saw no one flying off and flipping, apart from maybe Toby Davis in lap 1, but that's a different matter altogether. We had 9 cars legitimately with some form of a chance of getting a podium by the end of that race. It was absolutely incredible stuff. And for you guys that have watched that first race and enjoyed it, make sure you recommend it to all your friends, share the links, because that's what the Touring Pro Series is all about.
Most definitely. But I just had a bit of from Mike Bell, of course, who is actually spectating, giving us a bit of inside information as to what's going on. Now, what we believe what happened to Robert Wiesenmuller as to why he retired from the race, it was a wheel disconnection, which apparently he had in Virtual Touring Masters as well. He thought he fixed it, but more importantly, as a result of that, he will not be taking part in race 2. Now, what that means for the championship is basically Chris Butcher can open up quite a substantial lead here if he can give himself a good result, potentially maybe a top 5 if he can achieve that. But what's going to be good is that, of course, Butcher now can put himself in a prime position to finally grab himself his first TPS championship. Apparently, what Butcher was saying about what was happening in that battle, his words were that was utterly disgraceful. So he was clearly not happy with that at all. But what, of course, what is fantastic for what is disgraceful for some people, for the drivers, is fantastic for the fans, because we had a couple of guys messaging us saying it was an absolutely epic race. And John, you can't disagree, because racing like that doesn't come along all the time. And if it, of course, there are certain races or certain championships that just provide just magical moments in both real and sim racing, and I think certainly that was one of them. I think that's definitely one that will live in TPS memory as one of the better races, one of the best races that we've had in the championship, purely because of how close it was, and the level of competition in that race, and the amount of position changes we had was just simply phenomenal.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm going to have to disagree with Chris there, because obviously we didn't ride on board with him the whole race. We didn't see maybe drivers making unfair contact with him, but from our point of view, and from Chris's perspective, he's now got a massive championship lead. Okay, Eric Strana won the race, but Robert Wiesenmuller has had a very, very unfortunate wheel disconnect, which you have to say, it happens in sim racing. It's a real shame, but it could happen to anyone. And it's just one of these things, some point in your career in sort of sim racing, these things do happen. I mean, we saw Chris Butcher, when he was in Robert's position last season, had a monitor disconnect. So it's a similar kind of situation. So although Robert will be absolutely gutted with that, I'm afraid that's sim racing. And as much as we feel sorry for him, that's the way it goes. But Chris Butcher is now, looking great for the championship. Eric Strana is going to be his nearest rival, because he's come back with a bang. It's been a long time since he won the race. And I did say before that one, pretty much I did basically guess in my prediction that Ice Cold Boys might take a win because they're looking good, and it's managed to come true there with a 1-2 for the two Erics. But yeah, it really was a case of anyone could have won that race. I think Eric Strana won the race, but I think all the drivers won that race. Metaphorically speaking, it was just absolutely fantastic. And I'm sorry if there were any of the drivers were aggrieved with the driving we saw there, but from our point of view, it was stunning to watch, very entertaining. There was nobody ended up being pushed off into the wall or anything like that. So I think we can safely say that was a stunning race.
Absolutely, and of course, one thing we also have to talk about is the fact that some of the key championship players either weren't here or had very bad races. Of course, Wiesenmuller in second didn't finish with his wheel disconnection. We had no Peter Dweevil, although we possibly are speculating he could be around for race 2, unconfirmed, but we'll have to wait and see if he turns up in this second qualifying session. We have no Rasmus Salo. Toby Davis, his race ended after just 4 corners, I think through no fault of his own. Looked to me, from what I could see, he got tagged by somebody, which then speared him into who was it that he hit? I think it was Alex Forward that he hit, wasn't it? It was Alex Forward. And of course, both him and Madazewski went off. So THR Orange had a very poor race. So Toby Davis has lost points to Eric Devine, who came second in that race, just ahead of Alexander Lauritz. And of course, Lauritz himself has managed to get himself. Coming into this race, he was 16th in the championship, but of course, if he continues at that rate, he will definitely break into the top 10, at least by the end of the season, with the pace that he's showing and the results that he's able to put together. Miguel Neto was up there in the top 10, as was Ryan Callan and Andrew Waring. So a lot of the top 10 guys, either it was kind of polar opposites, either they had fantastic races and they were up there in the top 10, or either didn't have great races because either they simply weren't here, or had poor races because they retired or had, but through no fault of their own, through accidents or disconnection problems. So it really is kind of a tale of two sides for the kind of championship contenders, really. And I think, but really the man who's kind of benefited the most in many cases, well, Strana's managed to close. I think definitely with that result, he would have overtaken RW in the point standings, so he is now second. So now what's key, we have to think about, is that now effectively it could now be Butcher versus Strana for the championship rather than Butcher versus RW. So now Butcher now needs to think about the fact that Strana is still kind of on form after he finished off what he did in the Clios and the V8 Supercar. So he's still very much a form driver at the moment in TPS, but Butcher now has to figure out this new threat, because of course Strana was third, but he was only about 9 points back before this first race. So Butcher's now going to have to refocus, put that race, any of the troubles, any of the niggles that he has from race 1 out of his mind, and has to push forward and get as many points as he can, and ideally finish ahead of Strana to remain in a champion lead. He should do by the end of this championship, unless at the end of this race weekend, unless Butcher retires or doesn't score any points for whatever reason. But surely you have to see that in terms of consistent results, Butcher's had the wins, but Strana's been up there scoring consistent points. And if Butcher has one poor result, Strana will be straight on him and he'll be up there like a shot to take the championship lead.
Yeah, I mean, there's a few aspects we really do need to cover with the championship that's made it very interesting because, first of all, as you're saying, I do believe it's now become a two-horse race. I mean, it's got to be Butcher versus Strana. But also, that first race did reiterate the point where we're saying that anything can happen. If for example, Butcher had the wheel problem and it was Wiesenmuller who managed to finish in the top 5, suddenly Wiesenmuller's right there in the championship. If Wiesenmuller had the wheel problem and he happened to be battling with Chris at the time, takes Chris out of the race, suddenly Eric Strana's looking, suddenly he's equal on points with Chris and up there in the championship. So it reiterates the point that anything can happen. So it's definitely by no means over until the Fat Lady sings at Mid-Ohio. But looking at the other contenders, I find it difficult to, open anyone else up into the top 2 apart from Butcher and Strana. I mean, Wiesenmuller's had a wheel problem that he's still not fixed. Dweevelar missed the first race. I mean, he's fastest in qualifying so far, so he's obviously got pace if we jump to him now, but he missed the first race. I haven't seen Rasmus Salo at all. Toby Davis crashed out spectacularly on lap 1, and then it goes back to Eric Tveit, who's almost half the points of Chris Butcher and way too far behind to make any impact whatsoever. So there's many interesting aspects to this one.
Absolutely, and I'm sure all those aspects will play themselves out in this second race. Whilst we're in the break, we'll once again give you a chance to inform you of the different other races that are going on around Touring Pro Series throughout the next couple of weeks. So the next event that's coming up after the minis is going to be the next round of the Virtual Supertech Series from Brasilia. That's going to be at 10 to 6 this weekend on the 25th on Saturday. That should be myself and Ryan Callan commentating. Then next Wednesday we get the fantastic Virtual Touring Masters. They had a sensational race at Hockenheim along the long fast straights of the old layout through the forests. They now get to hop over the border from Germany to Austria as they head to the old school Österreich ring for another race, and that will be on Wednesday at 7:45 to tune in. And then this should be a good one. This is the next round of the Virtual Carrera Cup, and we head to the best circuit that the British Championship can offer, and it is the fastest circuit in Britain and indeed in Hampshire. It is of course Thruxton with its fast sweeps. It's a circuit that definitely rewards confident and brave driving, and with these flat 6 cup cars they're going to be an absolute riot. It is a circuit which, at least in the Clios at least, is a race that everyone wants to win. Of course, it's prestigious in the Clios, and it looks to be exactly the same in the Carrera. So that will be next Saturday to tune in, and of course the next round of the Virtual Minis is going to be, of course, in 2 weeks' time on the Tuesday. So be sure to tune in for that, and we'll give you more details of that later on near the end of the broadcast. So as we look now to qualifying, we are now just over halfway through, and Eric Strana back on pole position is the man who's fastest. So still kind of tailing off his race 1 victory, now looking to get the front row again in race 2. Butcher's now just dethroned Campfield from second, although Campfield is now going quicker by just over a tenth of a second in sector 1. So Campfield looking to try and get himself his second ever TPS pole position, although he has aborted that lap and obviously gone off somewhere. We look at Miguel Neto, who is in 5th position, and he's chasing after his teammate, I think Pedro Amaral, as they head down towards. We also do have Paul Patrick has made it home, because I do know for a fact that Adrian Campfield did say that Paul actually was working late and was trying to get himself home for at least the second race. He has done that, and already he's jumped straight into 8th place with a time that's exactly the same to the 1,000 as Peter Dweevlar. So both Dweevlar and Patrick are on a 1:15.682, but I think possibly because Dweevlar set that time first, he is the man who gets the higher position. And in fact now, Toby Davis has gone to 7th, and Andrew Waring into 6th. So we've got a few more times changing hands. And but as it stands right now, Luis Fernandez also in 4th position. What a great time from him. 1:15.758 to see the Smile Power driver up there on the second row of the grid, and he'll be alongside Adrian Campfield if things stay as they are with just over 3 minutes to go. Jake Walker's up there as now Andrew Waring has gone fastest in sector 1, and he is now working his way through a lot of traffic. He's got to try and work his way through as best he can, and he does so without too much trouble. That was Jimmy Hughes off in the background just moving out of the way, and of course we'll get the sector 2 split at some point to see if that, I'm pretty sure it will have cost Andrew some time trying to get around these two cars, but how much time will be evident only when we get to the end of the second sector, as Tveit goes fastest. So currently it's an all ice cold front row for the moment, as we see 2 of the Campfield Racing cars going nose to tail. But so far Butcher having a much better qualifying up on the second row to start alongside Campfield. But so far ice cold, as you predicted for race 1 at least, are certainly the team that's currently in form at the moment. But of course, it's fantastic to see that a brand new team like Campfield Racing and these drivers that have come in with real racing experience, it's great to see that the series is once again attracting real racing drivers. As Butcher, look at this,
Look
he's
at
up
that lap.
almost over a tenth. So Chris Butcher absolutely sailing along in the number 2 car. He brings the THR Red Mini onto the pit straight, and let's see if he can possibly go to pole position, and if so, by how much. He's currently 3rd, he brings it to the line, and his time is going to be 1:15.436. He
Look at that!
And Larison puts in a 15.225. What a stunning lap once again from Larison. He did it for qualifying 1, and once again, John, he's done it in qualifying 2. Sensational stuff.
Yeah, that is an incredible lap time, miles faster than we've seen today, and I'm sure almost guaranteed pole position, but as we know, anyone can improve. As Paul Patrick, he's actually not far off Paul Patrick on a 3:11, but the reason this race I think could be very intriguing is we saw 9 cars, quick enough to win the first race, or at least quick enough to be in contention for a top 5 or a podium. This race, we have the addition of Adrian Campfield, we've had Luis Fernandez up there, we have Paul Patrick. Sorry, when I said Adrian Campfield, I didn't mean the addition of Paul Patrick, because of course Adrian raced in race 1. We have Peter Dweevlar, who looked very quick early on. If Jake Walker can get a good lap together, he was looking great in practice. We've got so many more than 9 drivers that could potentially be in this one. It's such an open grid. The fastest guys can find themselves outside the top 10 if they don't get a perfect lap together. I think that's what we're seeing now. I mean, you saw Toby Davis right up there earlier on. He's now down in 11th, with behind the likes of Jonathan Ockerclund. So there's a lot of surprises to be sprung up here. But one thing, when I was mentioning the championship, I did forget to mention, so I'll just throw it in now. I think Chris will be happier fighting his championship against Eric Strana than Robert Wiesenmuller, because, of course, if he's fighting against Wiesenmuller, you're fighting against your teammate, you're trying to stay out of trouble with them, etc, etc. Whereas if you're fighting against the likes of Eric Strana from Ice Cold, you have a teammate to back you up, you have a teammate to help you win the championship if they have no hope. So it gives Chris that extra buffer and that extra margin for error in the championship hunt. So this is, of course, Wiesenmuller will be out of the championship now. He's missing this race as well, very unfortunately. So it is down to Butcher and Strana now, and at the moment it looks like Butcher's in 3rd position, Strana in 5th. It's just a few seconds ago it was Eric Strana in 1st and Eric Strana in 2nd, sorry, and Eric Tveit in 1st. So as the Ice Cold guys dominated, suddenly 3 faster times have come in, as Campfield has a draft and is purple in sector 2, but that looks like he's run a bit wide. Can he keep it together, though? It's sector 1, I should say, sorry. But it's going to be very difficult, Scott, for anyone to knock Lauritsen off the throne.
Yeah, most definitely. And also one thing, actually, a good point you mentioned, of course, is that I was going to touch on, is of course that effectively now that Wiesenmuller is out of the championship fight, it does mean now that Butcher now has an ally rather than an enemy. sat opposite him in the THR Red Garage, and of course he can count on Weissmuller to give him some championship support should it come to the final couple of the races here at Campo Grande, and then the final round at Mid-Air Height, as it did last year. And of course it was between Butcher and Weissmuller. And Campfield, of course, is now behind Paul Patrick, going a little bit sideways to the final corner. But this is the crucial thing. Of course, these guys working together, as we see in TPS many times. Teammates using the slipstream to get the extra straight line advantage. And Adrian just can't find any more time. He's still sixth. And of course, Paul Patrick did have the major aid of a tow to set his time to get himself onto the front row. The flag is out, and we have ended the qualifying for the race 2. And I do believe, unless we've got a couple more cars on laps, we do. We've got Eric Strana, who is now on a lap and applying some tactics of their own, are ice cold. As Strana has a nice draft to get some clean air from his teammate Eric Tveit, but doesn't seem to have done too much at the moment because he has now dropped by almost 0.03 of a second. So he's down at the moment on Alexander Lauritsen's pole time. But he still has 2 more sectors to try and scrape this all together. He's tucked up behind his teammate as they run down towards turns 6 and 7. These 2 very fast, high-speed right-handers. The kinks in the road before they head down towards the hairpin. And Strana, ooh, that was very tricky. You see, Trite had to almost get out the braking. In fact, they realised that hasn't really gone to plan and decided to abort the lap. So once again, as we saw for race 1, Alexander Lauritsen has taken pole position, but now this time he has Paul Patrick for Campfield Racing alongside him on the front row. Butcher, who's now the championship leader, is now third with Eric Tveit alongside him. And now the brand new championship rival for Chris Butcher, Eric Strana, who won race 1, should start off from row 3 with Adrian Campfield. So looking at what we have then, John, this is going to be another intriguing race with a lot of top field drivers up there in the top 10. And a couple out of position. It's good to see also Toby Davis popped into 8th place on the grid, so he'll start from row 4. And also intriguingly, nowhere in the top 16, no Ryan Callan. So either he had a poor lap and couldn't string one together, or just simply was feeling too much under the weather and just didn't really want to go out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure about that one, but we do have a couple of bits of information for you. First of all, massive congratulations to Xavier De Carvalho, who picked up his first ever Touring Pro Series top 10 in the last race. And as we were busy focusing on the top 9, he was my prediction to win the race, of course. Sadly didn't do that, but still got his first top 10 in the Touring Pro Series in the first division at least, so very well done to him. And also another bit of breaking news, if you like. I've been told by THR sources that actually Robert Weissmuller has, I believe, signed out of the mini championship, and I found the perfect person to ask about this. So Robert, is this information I'm hearing true?
Yeah, the problem is at the moment that my wheel keeps disconnecting all the time, and it's quite dangerous. Other people are driving around me because I can't steer at all. The throttle stays the same when it disconnects. And I was lucky to hit escape fast enough in the first race, so that I didn't crash into Bucci. But yeah, I can't tell when it happens. It just happens in the last 2 races. I tried to fix it, it didn't work. And I need to buy a new wheel, I guess. And so far, yeah, until I don't have a new wheel, I can't participate.
Yeah, it's a real shame because obviously in race 1 when we actually viewed a replay and we were very confused, but it's a real shame that it ended up happening like it did, because it looked like your car, obviously you're on the left hand side of the track, suddenly starts turning right due to the wheel disconnecting. At the time we weren't sure if it was internet or what, but as I said at the time, it looked like you just escaped suddenly, so we were a bit phased by that. But it makes perfect sense now that with the wheel problem like you had in the VTM, so that it's a massive shame. But it does mean that you can give a bit of moral support to Chris and obviously help him try and get his first championship. But of course now we've got Robert Weissmuller in the commentary box for the rest of this race to give a reigning champion's point of view. But unfortunately, if it is anything like race 1, Scott, he's not really going to be able to get much of a word in.
Well, hopefully we'll try and incorporate as much as we can. But of course, Robert, one thing that's obviously intriguing, I'm pretty sure the answer is going to be probably yes, but obviously, now of course you've signed out the minis, effectively you are completely out of the championship fight. But had you been able to continue on, because and obviously if the problem hadn't been the wheel, and you had scored no points and been out of the championship fight, obviously it's now going to be Chris Butcher versus Strana now for the title. If you were still racing the course and had it come down to the final race at Mid-Ohio, I'm presuming that you would play the good teammate role and give Chris as much support as you could, of course, being your teammate. You guys had that situation last year, of course, where you were teammates but also championship rivals, so it was very difficult to, of course, you're going out there for your own kind of championship fight as it was. But of course, would you? How much support would you have given Chris going into that final round had you still been running? and with it now being Strana versus Butcher, how well would you been able to help him win the title?
Well, of course I would have given him support if he would still be ahead in the points at this stage. I mean, if I have a good chance as well, then of course I try to win the title for myself. But yeah, I think you could see in the last race in the end how well Twilight could help Strana. Because Twilight was holding the field up a bit, and Strana could catch up, and then went around the outside in the first corner. And so I really think it helps when you have a teammate serious that supports you. But yeah, no, I can't support Chris anymore, so I hope Alex and Toby can do that.
I guess also one thing we can also touch on as well is the fact I was trying to think about my point, but I've now completely lost it. That was it I was going to make. Sorry, complete blank mind there, but it's come back now. Now that Chris is in this position, and of course he's been in this position several times before, including of course last year with yourself for the title. The main question I think it is the fact that he's been so close so many times. If he can keep it all together and score a decent enough result here in this second race, do you think Chris can do it? Do you think Chris can finally take his first TPS championship, or of course with Strana being so in form, is it? It's obviously going to be a lot harder it's going to be a lot harder than it sounds. It sounds easier than it really is, but just. What does Chris have to do now in order just to keep himself consistent and keep himself in line to win his first TPS championship right now?
I think Chris did everything right in the first 4 events. First 3 events actually, since this is the 4th one. He just stayed out of trouble, got the good results in, and in the first race you could see that he was getting angry a bit and getting pushed around, and he just needs to stay out of the battles because he still has the points gap and still has very good speed. So yeah, I'm pretty sure he can win the title.
Well, he's hoping so, and of course we'll bring you in, Rob, as much as we can. Of course, but obviously, if the battles are getting pretty hard and frantic, of course, then we'll do our best to bring you let you express your point of view of what's going on. But I guess as we did before in race 1, to get it in early, John, if you want to start from the back, and we'll work our way through the field, starting with the man in 32nd place.
Definitely. So hoping for another sensational race 2 after probably one of the. Go down in history as one of the most exciting races in Touring Pro Series history. That was just had, and hope for many more laps of the same kind of action. Matt Emmons will be bringing up the rear for the second time in a row in 32nd, with Duarte Lopez starting 31st. Scott Sovic is in 30th, behind the Smile Power car of Lewis McGlade in 29th. Ben Hackison will be starting in 28th, with Shell Stenbeck, who retired from race 1, in 27th. David Nannen in 26th, behind Arichus Razvan, who will begin in 25th. Ethan Bass warming his tyres a lot there in 24th, with Pedro Amaral in 23rd. Jimmy Hughes for Mad Cape is starting in 22nd, behind his Mad Cape teammate Xavier Di Carvalho in 21st. Alex Forward on his debut will be looking to move forward in the field. Pardon, that was a horrendous pun, but he begins in 20th position. Thomas Matazowski for THR Yellow, hoping to make it through lap 1 this time in 19th. Reece Gardner, is beginning in 18th, with Ryan Callan. A lot of work to do from 17th to be in the position he was, and then Scott can take you through the top 16 for race 2 from Taruma.
Absolutely, and in the top 16, in 16th is Nico Schweitzer, and in P16, P15 for Aerostream Matt Richards, almost rear-ending the man in I think P13 Jonathan Osterklint, but it's P14 for Jake Walker, again in his first sim race for the Campfield Junior team. 13th Jonathan Osterklint in Optimum sim racing. Then in 12th Peter Dweevlar didn't take part in race 1. What can he do from 12th on the grid in race 6? He'll start alongside Luis Fernandez in car 9 for Smile Racing. Andy van der Velde also suffering with illness, as is Ryan Callan. He'll start in the top 10, and then Andrew Waring in 9th. He passed that fantastic group. Toby Davis will be hoping to make it further than turn 4 this time, starting from 8th. Miguel Neto starts 7th for EKT Portugal, and then the top 6. Adrian Campfield for Campfield Racing. Eric Stryer, the man who won race 1, starts 5th. Eric Tveit 4th, his teammate at Ice Cold, and then the top 3. Chris Butcher, championship leader, in 3rd for THR Red. Paul Patrick starting on the front row of the grid for Campfield Racing, and on pole is Alexander Lauritsen once again for the second time this evening. So as the cars bring themselves into position, we are all set for another 20 laps of race 2 of round 5 of the 2014 Virtual Mini Challenge, brought to you by Touring Pro Series here at the Autodromo Internacional di Taruma, looking for Alexander Lauritsen's car, waiting for the lights. Here they come, one by one. The revs are going to rise, and in a few seconds' time, we're going to be racing Taruma. Lights are out, and here we go. Chris Butcher doesn't move. He has a poor start, and actually he just got bogged down at the line left as they head down towards turn 1. Lauritsen gets the jump as they head into the first corner, with Patrick second, Device in third, has Strana in fourth, and Chris Butcher been shuffled back to 11th place. That's a disastrous start. He's lost 8 spots, as already Patrick trying to force his way up the inside of Alexander Lauritsen. Oh goodness, John, it started already as they head down towards 3 and 4. The pack snakes its way down towards the hairpin, with Lauritsen already on the defensive down towards the left-hander, sorry, and we've got another 2 ice-cold cars going side by side. It's Tveit forcing his way up the inside. That was a great opportunistic move from the young Norwegian into second place, as he now see Eric Strana, who's been passed up by Adrian Campfield on the outside. So the Campfield Racing cars now in a ice-cold racing sandwich, with Nato in 6th, Waring's now in 7th, now going side to side with Toby Davis, who's to make contact again. And now also saw the Waring hit NATO as well, as the field snakes their way through turns 8 and 9 towards the end of lap number 1 of 20 once again. And this faster pack is again getting sideways on cold tyres, trying to get these tyres up to temperature in the first couple of racing laps. And as the field winds its way onto the pit straight again, several cars going wide onto the grass on the exit of the final corner. But it is Lauritsen who leads them, from Tveit in second, Paul Patrick into third. Tveit now
Butcher's out of the race.
Butcher's out!
And Butcher's out of the race! Chris Butcher is out of the race. That is an absolute disaster for the championship leader. And we have to see a replay of exactly what happened here. Now this is now side by side now with his teammate Toby Davis.
That's unbelievable.
And was that a disconnection? I think it possibly may have been.
I believe we've just been joined by him, so just tell us what happened there, Chris.
The lights didn't come on for me at the start. The first time I had the race had started was when all the cars started, and then crossed the line and just randomly disconnected.
That is heartbreaking stuff. And we've got to, Eric Strana sitting in battling for 4th position at the moment, but thankfully you've got a big enough championship lead for it to, not be the end of the world. But that's a disaster for yourself.
Yeah, I should. I've not looked at the points from the first race yet, but I should still be in the championship lead. But obviously not something that I wanted.
This comes back to what we're talking about, Scott. If Robert hadn't had his wheel problems in race 1, we were saying anything can happen, and it usually does. And this is the perfect case in point, because if Rob had managed to finish the first race and not had wheel problems and then done well in this one, it could have been all 3 of them could have been right up there in the championship.
Yeah, it's a real shame, and also commiserations, Chris. Obviously, that's desperately needed points that you did need, of course. It really does mean that, of course, going into Campo Grande in mid-Ohio, you're going to have to effectively just cross your fingers and hope for the best and just keep out of trouble, I guess, because, of course, obviously, whilst you're out here in the commentary box, Strana's still out there grabbing points, and it doesn't make it any easier to say that, of course. But really, it's now kind of pressure's on, really, to try and get the points you need in both the final 2 rounds to try and take your first championship. And I know, of course, you've been fighting for a long time. I know you really want it to happen, so, of course, commiserations, of course, and fingers crossed you're able to get the results you need to try and pull it off.
Yeah, well, weekend to forget for me, really, with driving standards in the first race and then this. But I can't be conservative in the next 2 rounds. I've got to push as hard as I can. So we'll see.
Well, commiserations, Chris, and thanks for joining us. Anyway, if you want to stick around, feel free to. As we now continue on with what has been going on here, as we now head to 1/5 distance here in the second race at Taruma, and look at the fastest laps tumbling down. As it's now Paul Patrick in third. So that's the fastest lap. We'll see one of the Airstream cars diving up the inside of somebody in the middle of the field. But as we've been talking to Chris Butcher, of course, he has unfortunately retired from this race. One of our first retirees from race 2. It is Alexander Lauritsen who still leads. Paul Patrick has now dropped to 3rd behind Eric Tveit. He's in 2nd place. Eric Strana still in 4th and now in the championship hunt. And now Andrew Waring in 5th with Miguel Neto 6th. Adrian Campfield did get a shove from Miguel Neto into turn 1 on the previous lap, and that pushed him wide onto the grass, which means he's now back in 7th, with Toby Davis bearing down on him in car 20 in the THR orange car in 8th, with Luis Fernandez and Ryan Callan up from 17th on the grid to 10th in the space of 3 and a bit laps. And great start from him, even though he is under the weather somewhat for walk racing. So great job from him to get himself up there. But it does seem to me, John, that for the moment, most of the kind of 2x2 action is happening in the second half of the field because they're all tightly bunched together. But in terms of the front half, either someone's had a word in their ear, but they're all playing nicely at the front at the moment. And that's what we see before, as we're seeing here. That is Matt Richards almost in a tandem drift with Andy van der Velde, and again someone's off in the background. I think that may be Matt Emmons getting sideways through the final corner as well. But plenty of action going on in the mid-pack at least, as Ryan Callan sets the fastest lap of the race, 1:15.433. And here's his teammate Peter Duivlar, of course, who was a previous virtual mini champion. And as they wind their way down towards the braking zone towards turn 2, it seems to me that, as we said, the bottom half of the field are the ones that are scrapping amongst themselves more often, but the front half of the field all playing rather sensible at this point.
Yeah, I mean, look at all the retirements we've had. We've had Xavier Di Carvalho, after his best TPS result, has now had a DNF here. Scott Sovic also out of the race. Matt Emmons is just retired, as we see. Oh, contact there between Duivlar and I'm not quite sure who that was. I'm just going to see if we can get it. Was Van der Velde on his debut for Smile in the minis. But look at this racing we've got here. A great chopper cam of this. Matt Richards, Jonathan Ockerclinth, Nico Schweinzer, Thomas Matazowski, and then just in front we have Duivlar and Van der Velde. That's Ockerclinth getting in very sideways, hits Richard, gets sideways again, but manages to keep it in check. So this seems to be where the action is at the moment. Saying that, Eric DeWitt and Paul Patrick are very close. We'll take a look at them in a second, but retirements have been Matt Emmons, Xavier Di Carvalho, Scott Sovic for Airstream, Ben Hackison. It looks like we might have been losing Nico Schweinzer there. Made a bit of a mistake on the exit of that turn. And we've also lost Chris Butcher. Of course, the most important loss so far in this race. But we go back to the front now, and it's Lauritsen who leads 0.3 seconds ahead of Eric DeWitt, who is looking very racy in the Ice Cold car, looking to get a win, to equal his teammates' result in race 1. It's Patrick in 3rd, Eric Strana in 4th, and Waring in 5th. And I'm going to bring Rob in here, because in Eric Strana's position, Rob, what would you be doing at the moment? You're sitting in 4th position, you've noticed that Butcher's out, you suddenly have a realistic chance of winning the title, so what would be the way you go about things?
I think it's important for him that he doesn't lose the draft completely from the group ahead of him, because when he does that, he will drop back into the claws of Andrew Waring. And we've seen in the first race that Andrew is really pushing hard for positions. So, well, he's got his teammate Dwight ahead of him in the group, and I think Dwight will do everything to slow the group a bit down. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure he will hang on to the group, and then he's in a really strong position.
I'll tell you who is having a much better race this time around in race 2, and that's Toby Davis, because he has got around Adrian Campfield, and he's in now into his 6th position. As I see, Miguel Neto has been shuffled down a couple of spots. But looking here, and this was the battle that was going on between these two. In fact, there's a bit of a side-by-side moment there, and speaking of side-by-side just behind, once again, resuming their battle from race 1, it's Neto and Fernandez going at it. But just ahead, look at this, Campfield swarming all over the rear. Toby Davis's THR Orange Mini as they head down towards turn 1, and through they go, getting sideways. Campfield almost loses it, but gives it a boost of throttle to bring the back end around. And under brakes for turn 2, Neto applying the pressure now as they head into the infield section of the circuit. And looking at the front, back again, it's a fantastic scrap going on at the moment. But staying with this battle here at the moment, they fight over the final middle places in the top 10. So you can see just who's what. Oh! And that is Neto giving Neto a clout in the rear. And but thankfully Neto manages to keep the car pointing in the right direction by, of course, keeping the throttle on in the middle of the corner, which is what you do with these front-wheel drive cars. You boot the throttle if it slides, and it brings the front end around, and away you go again. But back to the front of the race then, it's still Lauritsen who has a 0.2 of a second advantage over Eric DeWitt. It looks a lot closer than 0.2 of a second for sure, as we look at top speeds, and that's quite intriguing. So Toby Davis, also Ashok Razvan, Ryan Callan, Andrew Waring, all with the top speeds of 185. So possibly, John, they're running with slightly lower wing on the rear wings of these cars, because they do have, I think, an adjustable rear wing on the Mini. So it's something that they can, one of the very few adjustments that they can make on this car. Either that, or it is a very fixed setup. So the fact that all they can do is just drive the car as is as they get in the car. But Lauritsen holding on for the moment, and we've seen him get a breakaway pack here, and it's just as Rob said, the fact that Strauss has fallen away from the toe is now allowing him to come under pressure from Andrew Waring. And if he's not careful, he may make a move down the outside here, John. He's going to have to try and keep it on the road and keep out of trouble, and hope that Waring does not cause him too many problems, which could potentially see him lose places and more importantly, points in the championship fight.
Yeah, I mean, the problem that Strana's got right now is he's got too big a gap to Paul Patrick, Eric Tveit and Lauritsen for the toe at the moment. He needs to get pushing in there, and he won't be able to communicate during the race with Andrew Waring. You'll need someone to, this is where teammates can come in handy, swapping information, trying to get these guys to work together. But it looks like Andrew is kind of settling in behind Eric and pushing on at the moment. But if he doesn't do that for too much longer, and they realise that they won't be able to catch the front three, then Andrew will go in the offensive. And we know that Andrew is a very, attacking driver that's got good overtaking manoeuvres, and he's got good racecraft in general. But he is prone sometimes to making some mistakes, and he's been quick all week, so he'll be a dangerous man for Eric Strana to have to defend from. And he might get to the stage where Andrew's pushing him so hard that Eric just needs to let him go for the championship's sake. But it's a bit early for that kind of thing at the moment. I think Eric's just going to try and get the best results possible. But yeah, it's Alexander Lauritsen leading from Eric Tveit and Paul Patrick. This is where the battle's at the moment. Paul, in only his 4th race, missed race 1 of Taruma, but he's managed to get his eye in pretty quickly, and suddenly finds himself fighting for the win. You've got Eric Strand in 4th, with Andrew Waring 5th, a big gap back to Davis and Adrian Campfield, who's having a slightly underwhelming in comparison to the 3 previous races he's had, in 7th, with Miguel Neto. As we see contact there between Campfield and Davis, but as we said, it's Neto in 8th, with Louis Fernandez 9th, and Tweevalar rounding out the top 10 ahead of teammate Ryan Callan.
That's quite intriguing that Tweevalar's managed to get around his teammate. I wonder if there was any any friendly contact between the two of them, whether or not just Peter said, off you go. Ryan just said, off you go, Peter, you're the faster man at the moment, and I'm clearly under the weather, so you can go out and grab some points that you've missed because you are higher up in the championship and you possibly deserve them. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe we can ask Ryan after the race. But back to the front, this is now, of course, the battle for 6th going on between Davis and Campbell, with Neto and Fernandez staying close. So a nice 4-car train fighting over 6th position. And once again, Campfield going to the inside, which is exactly where Davis has gone to cover that inside run. But still, Davis is using all of his racecraft that he's learned, but he hasn't got racecraft to try and defend against that, because Campfield's trying to go around the outside. Has he got enough room? Has he pulled off what Strada did earlier on? Yes, he has. Or has he done, because he's maybe gone too deep into turn 2. Davis trying to fight back, but he hasn't done it. Campbell, with a stunning outside pass, duplicates exactly what Strada did in race 1. And what's made all the more spectacular for Strada is that he went past 2 cars rather than the 1. But still, passing around the outside at turn 1, something that is nothing to be sniffed at, of course. And
Well, Patrick has gone into 2nd place now, by the way.
And Patrick, you're correct, thank you for that, Rob. He has gone into 2nd place. So Patrick has gone a little bit too deep, though. As we say that, Tveit goes back up the inside into turn 8 and gets the move done to move back into the 2nd step on the roster for the moment, at least. And of course, already we're at lap 10 again. Of course, John, this is absolutely fantastic racing again. Doesn't time fly when you're having fun?
Yeah, and one thing I'm realising here, no matter how many cars you have battling, in the top 10, top 15, the whole field could be battling for all we know, but we can't forget the fact that all of these guys are just racing for glory, except at the moment it looks like it's between just Chris Butcher and Eric Strana. And of course, with Chris being out of this race, Eric Strana is the only man at the moment that's really fighting for the championship. Every other driver here is going for glory, going for the race results, and that's why we saw such intense racing. And I'm a bit surprised that they're not going at it quite as much as they were in race 1 here. Maybe there's a slight, a few drivers that were aggrieved by low standards of driving, which we didn't really see. We saw a lot of bumping, but nothing too bad. So maybe these guys are taking it a bit easier. But I'm surprised, because I would have thought they'd all be going, all guns blazing for the win, since nobody here except Eric Strana is really, in the championship fight. You could say Eric Tveit, but he's just too far back at the moment.
What you have to bear in mind, of course, is the fact that Tveit is up there in 2nd place, and he's keeping Lauritsen and Patrick occupied for the moment. And of course, what Tveit doesn't really want to do is cause any kind of incident with either Patrick or Lauritsen, which could potentially involve Eric Strada should he come onto the scene and not be able to avoid it in time, should there be any kind of coming together. Because, of course, effectively, if not saying Tveit would cause anything on purpose whatsoever, but if such an incident was to occur and Strada had nowhere to go, there's every real chance that Tveit could inadvertently ruin his teammates' chances for the championship if he's not too careful. So he's going to have to make sure that he's aggressive, as in firm but fair, so he's able to attack, but not doing it to an extent that he's going to be trying pushing people off the road. As we now see again, that was Campfield trying to go around the outside of Davis once more into turn 1, gets across the curb on the exit of the corner, and Miguel Neta's trying to push himself into the action as well. As we see Campfield just trying to hold off, but he's getting a shove now from Neto, as the Portuguese driver giving the ex-Formula Masters driver the hurry up on the exit of turn 2. And look at this, as Fernandez trying to go to the outside, And behind them, also the two racing cars are going at it, hammer and tongs, and they're holding up a huge queue of cars. We see Neto getting up the inside, forcing his way up through the inside of Campfield racing car, puts Campfield onto the grass, and Campfield gives a friendly shove, saying, "Take that, Neto!" Boof! Just straight up the inside again. As again, the two teammates, they're battling once again. Look at this, and they're also bringing in Matt Richards into this one. Breedlove still trying to go around the outside. Again, not able to get it done. He has to be wary on the exit, because of course Matt Richards will try and make his way through. And in that battle also we've got Andy van der Velde, Thomas Madazewski, Jochen Osserklint, and also Jimmy Hughes in there too. So a lot of battling, a lot of cars in this train that are battling for 10 onwards. So the best of the rest in terms of top 10, and the final top 10 position, of course, it's all go with a 7-car train down the pit straight. Back at the front, they're looking very quickly. Lauritz still leads from Tveit in second and Patrick in third. Strana still holding on with a 0.2 of a second advantage in fourth to Andrew Waring. And then, of course, this battle continues to rage between Davis and also what's now Campfield. But Neto, Campfield's gone down 2 spots. He's lost 2 spots now to both Fernandez and Neto. Now, was there any contact? We didn't see it. Here's a replay kindly provided by John here on the broadcast. There's been a lag to it, so possibly we couldn't quite get it. So, it seems to me that possibly if there was any contact, we couldn't spot it. Maybe Adrian can possibly give us a bit more information in the interviews after the race. But so far, it seems to be that the front few guys in the top half of the top 10 are all behaving themselves. It's down at the bottom end, fighting for the final top 10 spot, where it's all getting rather fast and frantic.
Yeah, and I mean, Matt Richards will be delighted with how his race is going. I know he was not, not putting in too much effort into the minis in the most recent rounds. He's focusing more on other series where he's doing really well. So it's good to see him up in 12th position. He'll be delighted with how this one's going. Just going to look back through the field and see if we have any more retirements since we last checked. And Nico Schweinzer, as I mentioned, he did obviously run wide and hit the wall. I think that did end up causing his retirement, unless there was any more incidents we missed. But Jake Walker also a lap down and struggling. But I'd like to bring Rob in again. What do you make of the the Campfield Racing basically rise from nothing to suddenly be fighting with the top guys in the league? Have you I don't know if you've spoken to any of the guys from Campfield Racing, but how are you finding that partnership going?
Well, I think the whole level of the championship improves since these guys are coming on, because they're practicing so much and they're setting such good times that everyone else also has to practice and push harder. So that's a good thing. And well, I see them in the races and they're certainly driving very aggressive, but also quite clean for most of the parts. So yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, they're no worse than any of the other drivers, has to be said. Obviously in minis, there's the words clean and dirty which you could use, but we prefer to use unnecessary contact as opposed to a little bit of argy-bargy every now and then and a bit of payback for earlier, and that kind of thing. As long as it's not out of proportion, it's okay. So it does look like those guys are putting up making a good name for themselves and showing that they're good clean racers. Just no worse off than any of the other drivers in the field and making a good impression.
So we now head on to lap 15 of 20 as they head down towards turn 1 again. And what's intriguing is now they're all starting to close up again now, because Strana's now managed to just bring down that gap to the top 3. He's only 1.2 seconds off the lead that Lauritz has right now, but he is just coming off the back of the series to make it a quartet. And he has slightly dropped Andrew Waring now. He's got an 0.8 of a second advantage, and see what he can do to try and pull that in to make it a 4-car scrap for the lead. As we see now, Tveit trying to go around the outside of Lauritz as we go on board with Paul Patrick. And look at that, in fact, he has closed up.
And look at Strana.
Strana that's really close up in the braking zone for turn 4, which now allows him to get involved in this fight. As we see Tveit now defending from Paul Patrick on the outside down towards turn 8. Is he going to be brave enough to try and hold the outside line to make a pass? The answer to that question is no, he's not, because Patrick falls in behind and remains in 3rd position. They run down towards turn 8 and 9. This almost double apex left-handers, long sweeping corner that takes them back onto the pit straight to complete another lap once again. Lauritz remaining in the lead in car 48, and car 83 is Eric Tveit. That's the blue ice-cold car with a Norwegian flag on the top. Then it's car 69, which of course is Paul Patrick. That's the TPS default livery car. And Eric Strana looking in attacking form at the moment in 4th place. He is in the red ice-cold car with the Swedish flag adorned at his roof. And what's intriguing is that Eric Strana seems to have paced himself a little bit, but now he's had some clear air and no kind of, obviously he won't have had the benefit of a draft unless he's been battling with Andrew Waring. But now he's had some clear air to put in some quick lap times. It really has allowed him to close in, and he seems to be a guy that's super under brakes because he really did close in a lot last time around right here at turn 4 as they work their way now towards the few kinks towards the turn 7 hairpin. Let's see just how good Strano is under brakes with this magnificent helicopter camera giving us some fantastic aerial shots.
Contact!
That was Paul Patrick tags the rear of Eric Savite, and Eric Strano would have got a perfect view of that one. And I'm pretty sure Strano was thinking, come on, give over, leave my teammate out, or you're going to get some yourself. Look at that, he's right on the outside. Will he be able to get a move done? I'm not so sure. He tried. In fact, so let's have a look. We'll have to wait and see. But back onto the pit straight again. Waring's almost fallen out of this battle, so he's going to have to really go some and pump in a couple of quick laps to tag on to this 4-car train. They begin lap 17. Still Lapson leading. Oh, and Strana thought about a move up the inside. I thought even for a second he tagged the left rear quarter of Patrick's car. But it looks to me as though either that or Patrick just got the rear end out a little bit, but managed to correct it by flooring the throttle, as you do with these front-wheel drive cars. But once again, John, we've got a fantastic scrap for the lead. Not as many cars in the fight, but it just goes to show that even with about half the cars we had in the train, the racing's still as good.
Yeah, I think it's going to take one trigger for many of these 4 guys, suddenly make a move out of nowhere, and I think we're going to see 4 laps of frantic racing between 4 cars, and before you know it, if these guys end up getting in a properly good scrap, as we saw in race 1, the numbers keep adding. Waring could get in there. Obviously, Toby Davison 6 far too far back to be involved in this, but Waring, if there's a couple of incidents in front of him, could see himself right in there battling for the podium spot that he wanted heading into the round. But yeah, I'm very intrigued to see, come the end of this race, what positions Tveit and Strana will be, and whether the Norwegian will let the Swedish teammate past, because we know Eric Tveit is a very flamboyant driver, and he wears his heart on his sleeve, but will he sacrifice a bit of pride and a good result to help his teammate in the championship? I mean, that's all to become clear pretty soon, I think, Scott.
Yeah, definitely. I think, obviously, let's bring Rob on this one. Rob, of course, looking at how Tveit is in this position, of course, just what we were talking about on there, if you were Eric Tveit, and of course you knew that Strana was now in the championship hunt with Chris Butcher, and you knew that Butcher was now out, what in your mind would you do? Would you still go out for yourself and try and get a victory, or if you knew that effectively that Strana would be ultimately the one that's in the championship fight, would you kind of be more inclined to be a bit more lenient and maybe possibly let Strana have the extra points in order to try and help Ice Cold to try and secure a championship victory?
Well, personally, first of all, I would try to go for the win. And the thing right now is that Strana is not exactly behind Tveit, and I think you can swap positions when you're exactly behind each other, but I don't think these two are really interested in giving Paul Patrick a position for free. So I'm not sure.
Well, that could change in just a second, as Patrick was looking like he's having a move on Tveit. But, it depends on the situation, I guess. If Strana can get himself right up beside Paul Patrick, then it could work in their favour. But, knowing Eric, I don't think he'll want to sacrifice a podium for the sake of a few points for his teammate, Scott.
Well, we'll have to wait and see. And just been informed, apparently, from some inside information, that apparently if Strana gets 3rd position, if what's been worked out, he will lead the championship, leaving Taruma. So this is going to be a big one. So these next 2 laps, this could be crucial, because effectively Strana, whether or not he's aware of this or not, he's been informed over his team radio. We'll have to wait and see. So Strana will be absolutely on it to try and grab a podium place, because he knows that 3rd or higher will put him into the lead and will topple Chris Butcher off the top, of course, which is a real shame, because Butcher's been leading the championship for so long, and of course to lose it here through kind of no fault of his own, it means that it'll make it all the more harder to take and all the more harder to try and regain, coming the final couple of rounds at Campo Grande and then the season finale at Mid-Ohio. So they turn their way out of turn 8. Still Larrix has led, as he has all race. So
I have to say,
second. Go ahead.
Alexander has done a fantastic job so far, because unlike all the other guys in the battle, he doesn't have a draft, and is still setting the fast times consistently. And I don't think he has been passed at all, at least not in the last 10 laps.
I don't think he's led from start to finish.
I've just heard some information. Apparently, Adrian Cantwood has made contact with Neto and pushed the Portuguese driver off, so this is going to be intriguing. But now it's the final lap here, and Patrick now is leaving the door open the inside. Here comes Strana, could be the 3rd place he needs, and couldn't get it done that time, but he's still got a few more, still almost 3/4 of a lap to get it done. As now Tveit knows it must be now or never to try and get the win. If he's going to go for it, it has to be now in this last lap. He's been biding his time, as has Strana for third place. Both the ice cold cars may make their move. Here comes Tveit to the outside,
Tveit on the inside.
Turn 4. Can he get it done? And also Patrick, is he getting the shove? He's getting a couple of touches there from Strana. Will he have the traction on the exit? They're going to be side by side. Tveit's on the grass on the exit. Can't get it done that time. Strana trying to go around the outside of Patrick down towards turn 7. And under brakes, can he find a way through? Can he force a bit of a fake move here and try and get him on the switchback? I don't think he can unless Patrick runs wide on the exit, which he doesn't. And I think Tveit's possibly lost his opportunity unless he gets a fantastic run out the final corner. They sprint towards turn 9 for the final time here at Taruma. And Strana trying to go around the outside. If he can pull this one off, it'll be almost like Mansell and Berger at Mexico 1990 if he can. But no, Patrick pushes that one onto the grass.
Tveit will give him a stream though.
Anything more. Tveit's under pressure. Alexander Harrison will take a race victory. Who's going to get second on the line? It's going to be so close towards the line. Patrick gets second place, and Strana got third. Strana got third. I think Tveit may have even given him third on the line.
Yeah. He just let him through a break on the start-finish straight and let Strana and Patrick through.
So team tactics were at play then from Ice Cold. Intriguing stuff then, and it does mean as that Alex Strana will leave Taruma then as the championship leader. So final results then, Lauritsen takes the victory from pole, a lights to flag win for the Dane from a fantastic effort from Paul Patrick in second, and Eric Strana on the line given the final podium spot by his teammate Eric Tveit, who was in the fight for second for the lead for the whole race. Andrew Waring a few tenths back in 5th. Toby Davis does finish the second race and up in 6th position. Ryan Callan up to 7th after all the shenanigans between Neto and Campfield, we believe. Andy van der Velde up in 8th place, so he started in the top 10 and managed to stay there in 8th despite his illness. So what's quite ironic is that both of the drivers that were ill finish together in the standings. Luis Fernandez in 9th and Peter Dweevlar, who only raced in this event and not in the first race, finishes in the top 10. Neto's 11th, Campfield down to 12th after his contact. Richards 13th, Madazeski 14th, Jimmy Hughes 15th, Alex Ford only 16th, with Pedro Amaral, Jonathan Osserklint, Shell Stenbeck and Ashik Razvan rounding out the top 20. We're going to get the drivers in for interviews. Stay with us after these messages. We'll be back in 2 after 2 fantastic races here at Taruma.
Inside SimRacing.tv, the fastest show on the internet. Sim racing news and reviews since 2007, with new shows every week.
And welcome back to what have been 2 sensational races here at Taruma for round 5 of the virtual mini challenge here. It's hosted by TouringProSeries. And of course, we've still got 2 more rounds to go at Campo Grande and of course the Ferrari at Mid-Ohio. But before we get to our driver interviews, let's quickly run through what we have coming up in the next couple of weeks here at TPS. The next event you'll see on a live broadcast will be the next round of the virtual Supertech series. That is going to be the 5th round of the championship from Brasilia. That will be at 10 to 6 on the 25th. That'll be this Saturday. Myself and Ryan Callan should be on the comms for that one. Then next Wednesday, we head to the old school Österreich ring. We hop over the border from Hockenheim to Österreich and from Germany to Austria for the 5th round of the virtual Touring Masters. The big bangers, of course, the Group 5 DRMs, the fantastic machines such as the Ford Zaxby Capri, the BMW M1, the Porsche 935, etc., etc. So don't miss that at all. 5:45 on Wednesday, the 29th of January. I was trying to work out the date on that one. That's why I was trying to work that one out. And then, of course, next Saturday is going to be one I think we're all looking forward to. It is the 5th round of the Virtual Carrera Cup. It's been a fantastic championship so far with the races that we've had at Monza, Lebanon, Road Atlanta, and last time out at Norris Ring, the weekend just gone. Now we head to the best that the British Carrera Cup Championship can throw at us, and that is, of course, the fast, high-speed sweeps of the fastest circuit in Hampshire, at least in the UK, that is Thruxton. What a circuit and what a race that will be. And that will be next Saturday. And that should be, hopefully, John Munro and Danny Asbury giving you the commentary on that one. So, we have, once again, as we usually do at this point, been invaded by drivers in the broadcast booth. So we'll start, of course, I think, with the man who took victory in race 1 and, more importantly, third in race 2, and does, of course, take the championship lead leaving Taruma. It, of course, is Eric Strana. Eric, what a fantastic run for you this weekend. Of course, let's talk through race 1. From your point of view, what went on there? Because that was such a frantic race with a 9-car train rise at the end. Just talk it through from your point of view, because it looked as though it was rather hectic, and somehow through all of that, you came away with the victory.
Yeah, that was just tactical driving by me and Eric, I guess. I got a horrible start. I was stuck on the brake for too long and slipped back to 5th, 6th, whatever. And then just thought, oh well, I'll just bide my time. Chris, I can't remember what happened to Chris in race 1, but I saw he was behind me, he went off, and then I was just biding my time, and then Fight was having his hands full with Campfield and Lordson. And then I just try to make the car wide without being rude as he's on his last endorsement, and just wait to see if I can get a gap. And luckily I did, and we led all laps, so that's quite, not dominating perfect as such, but we led all laps, which is a lot better than we both expected, I think.
Now, of course, there was a couple of drivers were particularly unhappy with the driving standards in race 1. I mean, for some of the moves that you made in race 1, how did you view how the pack at the front raced in terms of how they behaved? Do you think it was fair? Do you think it was possibly it could have been a little bit better? What was your viewpoint on the driving standards in that first race?
From what I saw, it was clean. I mean, Lordson was very clean. He was nice against Eric, and so was Adrian. I had no problems with that. There was, we get crowded once or twice, which is a bit annoying, but it happens, I guess. It wasn't anything that happened, consistently. So it was fine. What I saw, I heard Chris was not very happy behind me, and I saw there was a few cars wide at certain points. So I can't see what Chris what he saw, but from what I saw, it was perfectly fine.
And I'm just quickly wrapping up, of course, race 2. You managed to get third on the line, of course. Just give us a brief summary of that. And also the fact now you've now been thrust into the championship fight now with Chris Butcher. How does that change your perspective on the last 2 races now at Campo Grande and Mid-Ohio? Because of now, of course, you've got the championship lead, which Chris has held for so long. So now, really, it's all to play for in the final couple of races. You can get the most consistent results in order to stay there.
Yeah, I know Campo Grande is a good track for me. I did well the last season, and I know I have definitely at the pace at Mid-Ohio as well. And I know Chris is hard, especially at Mid-Ohio. So yeah, now it's just keep focused, make sure you do proper practice, and just try to not make any silly mistakes and end up in a wall somewhere, because that's championship over.
Well, congratulations on the victory and the third place for today's races, and fingers crossed that you can turn a repeat performance in Campo Grande, and congratulations on your performances today, Eric.
Thanks.
So now, I believe John has got the man who was in the lead of the championship, but sadly now has it all to do now with the final couple of races. And John, I believe you have, unfortunately, a rather disgruntled Chris Butcher.
Yeah, and obviously we spoke to Chris earlier on, so I'm just going to give you one quick question, Chris. Obviously, after you've seen race 2 and how it's panned out with Eric, how's it looking for just in general, races and championship standings, just everything? How's the series looking in your perspective?
Well, by my calculation, he's 1 point in the lead. So it's not as if he's got a massive gap or anything like that. But I've got to work hard at the next track, because Stran's definitely got an advantage over me there. But I'm pretty handy at Mid-Ohio, so it's going to go down to the wire, I think.
Well, thank you for that, Chris, and obviously massive bad luck in the second race. Hopefully you can get that sorted out. And just before Scott gets our next interview, you can see the standings on your screen, and it's Eric Strana, as you can see, who leads the way by just 1 point from the unfortunate Chris Butcher. And I believe it's Robert Wiesenmuller in third position, still in 176, and no score for him today, with Peter Duivelar fourth, Rasmus Salo fifth, Eric Tveit is in 6th, with Toby Davis, Ryan Callan, Andrew Waring, and Miguel Neto rounding out our top 10. And of course, Alexander Lautzen, race 2 winner, in 11th. So, Scott, I believe that you've got our next interviewee.
I do indeed, and we are going to have a chat to one of the new boys in TPS, and I'm delighted to say we've been joined by Adrian Cantfield. So Adrian, of course, this is your second race weekend with TPS. Of course, it's a lot more fast and frantic up at the front, but from your point of view, how have you enjoyed it so far?
Oh, it's been real fun. It was a lot harder than I thought it was today. Velo was a bit different, but today was absolutely brutal. There was just cars everywhere. And what I've got to try and distinguish is that everyone wants to fight for every position rather than push together, which in race 2, which was what cost me really. I was fast enough to be at the front, but everyone just kept coming back in on me, blocking, and it just cost the front boys to get away. So that's the difference really, but it's still good laugh, it's good fun, I had fun.
Now, of course, you were involved in that rather frantic battle at the front in race 1 with the 9-car train. Of course, you made some pretty daring moves yourself, of course, but how pleased were you with your result in that race? Because, of course, and we can get your point of view on this one. How, for you, with the driving standards? Of course, 1 or 2 drivers are a little bit disgruntled by it, but was it clean and fair from your point of view, even though there was a bit of bump and run from a couple of guys out there?
To be totally honest, every single person at the front had exactly the same situation. There was bumping, there was pushing wide, and they can't pick out anyone really for doing anything more so than anyone else. Everyone was doing the same, because otherwise, if you didn't, you'd just get pushed on the grass and back down the field. So, but to be honest, it was fair. It was fair enough to a standard that everyone was driving the same. Like no one was driving any worse than anyone else, really.
And I guess just to wrap up, I'll chat as well, because of course race 2 was not as didn't go as well as you'd hoped, but of course I guess looking towards the future, of course now for TPS, of course hopefully you'll stick around for a few more races, but with the start that you've had in the virtual minis, with already a pole and a couple of fantastic results already, does that give you encouragement going forwards to try your hand at some other TPS championships? I mean, has this been real encouragement for you to stick around and take the fight to these guys in a few more different cars?
Yeah, definitely. I know me and Paul Patrick, we're absolutely loving it at the moment. So we might venture out into the different cars, but we'll definitely do this league next season as well and try and go for the championship. Because I think we're both fast enough, so we just got to learn how to race these guys. They've been doing it for a good few years now, and we're new to all of this today anyway.
Well, sure, with the pace that you guys are showing already, I'm sure it won't take you too much time to get up to speed. But it's great to have you and the guys here for TPS, and hopefully for the foreseeable future you'll stick around for a pretty long time. But for the moment, great job today, and we'll see you next time in Campo Grande.
Thank you.
So I believe, John, you have the man who was up there at the front pretty much all the time in both races, but had to move over to his teammate. I believe, John, you've got Eric Tveit with you.
Yeah, Eric, obviously you had a great second place for 1-2 for Ice Cold in race 1, and then managed to give the position back to your teammate in race 2. But before we get there, talk about race 1, because you did finish second, but you were part of what turned out to be a 9-car battle for the race 1. I thought Xavier Di Carvalho in 10th was going to win it at one point, so just talk us through that.
I mean, I just had a brilliant start and got into first position by the end of lap 1, so I knew from the start that I wanted to let Stranded come back to the front because he was the one needing the point. So I didn't exactly drive at 110% all the time. I kind of slowed down a little bit and tried to make it easier for Stranded to catch up, which I managed to do. And in the late laps, when Stranded actually got past us all, I kind of just misjudged the whole final corner because I had some oversteer on the entry, and suddenly he was past. So yeah, I'm happy with race 1.
And then obviously in race 2, we saw you look like you could have got second possibly from Paul Patrick, but then when you conceded defeat, am I correct in saying you let your teammate by for the championship?
Yeah, that's what I think teammates should do. Like, I'm out of the championship. I had no chance whatever to win it, so he has it, and he's now leading. So I think, as a way to look at it as a team, I think that's how it should work. But obviously, it probably didn't look as great or as fantastic on the broadcast, but yeah.
Well, no. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I was thinking, it'd be the sensible thing to do to let him pass if you were in a position to. So that's exactly what you did. So big kudos for that, and it's good to see a bit of camaraderie and teamwork going on, because that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, it's a team sport, and you managed to get your teammate, instead of being second in the championship, to first. So all credit for that decision. And I believe Ryan is going to have a quick word with our race 2 winner, who's just joined us, Alexander Lauritsen.
I am. I didn't realise. I think Scott, you can take this.
Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I think that was it. Yes, we've got our man from race 2, and of course, and took both pole positions today as well, Alexander Lauritsen. Alex, you certainly, just quickly before we get onto your race 1 victory, you certainly seem to have got your single lap pace down, because that was two stunning pole positions that, in both cases, came from nowhere.
Yeah, in the race 1, me and Eric tried to fight a lot, so yeah, that was a fight whole the race, so yeah.
And of course, then race 2, it was a slightly easier time, because effectively it was more of a lights to flag victory. You kind of got your nose in front, and then apart from a couple of challenges from Eric to right behind, you were never headed, and it almost looked a little bit easier. But I'm guessing it wasn't the case, because you were under pressure the whole time, weren't you?
Yeah, Eric has a great pace, but I didn't make some mistakes, and I was on pole, so it was great. So.
And of course, what's intriguing, of course, that you do have great pace in this championship, and you do seem to be enjoying the Mini. Of course, being a THR driver, of course, Chris Butcher is still in the championship hunt. So, what are you going to be doing, if anything, to be making sure that Chris is able to walk over the title? Because, of course, he is in a slightly different team, but of course, he is still THR. So, I mean, what kind of support are you going to be able to lend him as the final 2 race meetings to make sure that he brings home his first TPS championship?
Yeah, a little bit the same as Eric tried and the Extrana did in the race 1. That was great teamwork, so yeah, I think I will do a little bit the same as they do in the first race. If I'm first and he is second, I will let him pass, and yeah, so can he win the race and I can be second. That's fine with me, because I joined this championship really late, so I can't even fight for the championship, so yeah.
Excellent stuff. Well, congratulations on the victory in the pole.
Thank you.
Correct me if I'm wrong as well, but of course, I think congratulations in order, because we believe you're moving up to the Shirakawa Cup, aren't you, as well, in real life? So congratulations on that also, following the footsteps of Kelvin van der Linde.
Yeah,
So of course, I'm pretty sure that Ryan, everyone here will echo it, and we say very best of luck, and fingers crossed you can do exactly the same as Kelvin did last year. So no pressure.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, best of luck, and
thank you.
Fantastic win in pole positions, and fingers crossed for the next couple of races for you. So, John, I believe you have the man who you believe was going to interview Alex, and I think you're going to have a speak to now. It's Ryan Callan.
Yeah, okay, well, Ryan can interview me if he likes, but I think I'll go for this. Ryan, obviously you had a couple of great results, finishing 5th and 7th from especially difficult qualifying in race 2. But, another man involved in race 1, battle of the top 9. And just before I ask you your opinion on it, I just want to, give our opinion on it, to all the drivers that are here, because we thought it was some absolutely stunning racing. Obviously, a lot of guys, there was a lot of bumping and bashing, but everyone was doing the same, just as Adrian said. So we thought it was a stunning race.
We're here to entertain, aren't we? And it's nice, everyone being clean, but sometimes you like a bit of argy-bargy. And God, aren't racing drivers drama queens? Deary me.
Well, some are in particular.
Some are more than others.
No
names.
No
bumps
names.
and balls here and there, and they get really agitated. And it just, these things happen. These things are really, really close. It's incredibly difficult when you're by yourself to try and find a 10th, and you need to find 3 or 4 tenths to get past somebody. So some contact happens, and nobody ended up in the barriers. Apart, the only person I saw in the barriers was Adrian and Miguel in race 2. I bumped Chris on lap 1, but I was having a moment all by myself, and poor Butcher ended up on the grass on the outside. But this, I think, we're all here to entertain, aren't we? I'm sure the viewers enjoy watching it, to be honest.
Yeah, that's one thing. For those guys who just watch the broadcast, I'm sure you're going to go back and watch the race 1 again, because it was absolutely sensational. I mean, me and Scott were absolutely, taken aback by the racing that we saw there, and it's going to definitely go down in history of TouringProSeries as one of the most exciting sprint races we've ever had, and I'm sure all your drivers when you watch it back will agree.
It looked wonderful from my viewpoint. I was pretty much in the box seat for most of it. Couldn't quite get there until the last couple of laps, and it was very frustrating. But just on my races, I was a little bit peeved to qualify 7th with a 0.5. I thought I might be in the top 5 with that, but to be 7th, I was a little bit miffed about that. And my concentration wavered in the middle of both of the races. As you can probably hear, I'm not very well, guys.
Well, don't worry, we made sure they knew.
It made
Oh,
sure
yeah,
we
yeah.
knew. Everyone decided that I had a
We're all
good
praying
moment to
for
John
you.
and Scott about it beforehand to make sure I
We've
got
got
an excuse in.
Don't worry, we got the violins out. It's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
We've
It's a
started
great-
the Twitter
it's a
takeover of Get Well Soon, Ryan. So
It's a lovely, sexy voice. So everybody can send me some Valentine's cards in a few weeks' time. I'm sure you wanted to now. But in the first race, great. I mean, I ended up finishing 5th in the end, which I'm pretty pleased with. And to battle back from 17th on the grid and to finish 7th in the second race was really, really good. Could have been a little bit better. I think there was some battling between Davis and Fernandez and Nato. Nato went wide, and I was on the outside of Nato. He didn't leave me very much room. He didn't need to. I ended up to being sideways, and Van der Velde came through, and it took me a few laps to get past Peter and Andy, and I ended up, just kind of pootering around. I think in 9th place in the end. Oh, I must apologise to Luis Fernandez actually as well, also, because I bumped him wide at the hairpin, but unfortunately I couldn't really do too much about it. He moved across right just before the braking zone, which got me a bit by surprise. But it was enjoyable stuff, and I think people, you should take a little bit of a chill pill sometimes and appreciate that this is competitive stuff, and we're here to entertain.
And that's great to hear from a driver's perspective as well, because we were thinking exactly the same. The fantastic racing was just credit to all the drivers, and there was a bit of argy-bargy, but it came from everyone, and it created one of the best races we've ever seen. So no complaints there whatsoever, and well done for all the drivers for making that happen. And it was a joy to watch and commentate on. And I'm going to hand you back over to Scott now, and that's the end of the interviews. We've spoken to as many drivers as we can within. We don't want to be blabbing on for 10 minutes, which I seem to be doing right now. But stunning couple of races, Scott.
That was my fault. Sorry.
And Ryan sometimes goes on to me about going on all the time. Jeez. Anyway, moving forwards. Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic stuff. 2 races. I think definitely the first race that we had here at Tarum will definitely go down. Hopefully, I'm sure you'll agree, as one of the best races that we've currently had in TPS in recent history, if not ever, which was absolutely incredible. Of course, the battles we had and small bits of content, of course, as Ryan said, that is part of racing. That's part of what we get at here at TPS, and that's part of touring car racing, of course. Would you ever expect BTCC without a bit of contact, a bit of door rubbing? No, you wouldn't, because that's what you expect from stuff like touring cars. So, and yeah, there are one or two frayed tempers, but like I said, they'll cool down, and hopefully, by the time we get to Campo Grande in the next couple of weeks, they'll be back and ready to go once again. As we said, Campo Grande is in a couple of weeks. Of course, as we said before, the next couple of events will quickly remind you of what we have coming up. The next round of the Virtual Supertech Series from Brasilia will be this weekend. That will be on Saturday at 10 to 6. Hopefully Ryan Callan's in a bit better shape to commentate alongside me for that one. Then we've got on Wednesday the next round of the awesome Virtual Touring Masters. What a championship this has been with these fantastic Group 5 DRM race cars putting on some spectacular racing. Such a noise they make and such a spectacle. They'll be hopping the border from Germany to Austria, heading to the Österreich Ring, or the historic layout, of course. And then next Saturday, this is the one I think everyone's waiting for. It's the Virtual Carrera Cup at, I think, one of the holy grails of TPS. It is Thruxton, one of the fastest circuits in the UK, and with these Flat 6 Cup cars, it's going to be an absolute riot. And of course, as we said, the next round of the virtual minis will be, of course, Campo Grande in a couple of weeks. But thank you very much for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed the race as much as we have. So for myself, Scott Woodwiss, John Munro, and of course Ryan Callan, who runs TPS, and everyone here at TouringProSeries, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you throughout the next couple of weeks. Keep it tuned to TouringProSeries, but of course now Strana leads the championship. Can he hold on? Can Chris Butcher get it back? We'll find out next time at Campo Grande. But until then, bye for now.